am sure sports. You know me there, I'm coast to coast representing. I mean, I say this is righteous representing for Omar. You don't know, come get the sports over here from near and far. Boy. Me say I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. If me not sure, that me not say it. Know who score, that me not say it. Never know the game play, that me not say it. If me never seen a game, me not know who play. For your sports news, better come over here so. For your soccer news, then come over here so. If you don't love sports, still come over here so. For the day done, you are gonna love over here so.
So when it comes on to behavior concerning football, Jamaica is decent. I am sure that if we can get all of these things done, set in place by the end of April, it gives us enough time before the World Cup campaign. Not afraid of no Brazil, no Argentina with these crap of players. We are good enough. Remember to like, subscribe, share. Listen, comment. Let me know what your thoughts are.
Trick-Nick Jerk Marinade gives your meats and vegetables authentic Jamaican jerk flavor. The spices are directly from Jamaica. Spices like jerk seasoning, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper, fresh scallions, thyme, ginger, and garlic. The key ingredients to a great jerk marinade. 0% sugar and low in sodium. You want to try it?
Made up of 18 Jamaican herbs and spices. Add delicious, bold flavor to your next grilling experience. Flavoring sauce, a marinade, basting, condiment, or topping. Trick-Nick Jerk Barbecue Sauce.
All right, good afternoon to all our viewers, subscribers. This is Manning's Man, and you're on I Am Sure Sports. Want to say, hope you're having a great day. I am, because the Gunners continue their winning run in the EPL with a fantastic 4-2 victory over Brighton. City also drew their game 1-1. Manchester United had a 1-0 victory in their game, though they scored a goal that I think should have been given. So Liverpool, I'm going to start calling them Lucky Pool, because one team scored 3 goals. Liverpool didn't score a goal, but they managed somehow to win their game. Newcastle also had a 0-0 draw. So all of these things, they have worked in Arsenal's favor, which means we are now on 43 points. Again, the front three for Arsenal all got goals, right? Well, Martinelli didn't, but he assisted. But Odegaard scored, Nketiah scored, Saka scored. So, when you have it like that, you're having it very, very, very good. So big up to the Arsenal as they continue their role. It's also the 31st of December, which means that you have lived for an entire year if you're watching this video. So you must give thanks for that. You have your family around you. You have friends and loved ones. So you have to give thanks. You have to give thanks for life. Yeah, sorry. Martinelli also scored the last goal. What am I talking about? So the front three scored, and also Martin Odegaard scored, right? Give thanks for life. I hope, if you have a spouse, you tell her you love her. You have kids, you tell them the same. You tell your parents, call them, text them, right? Because we're not here forever, but while we're here, we maximize our life and we maximize our potential. All right, big up to the sponsors of this video. The sponsors are Prestige Finance. Prestige Finance, lending a helping hand when you need it the most. Prestige Finance is located in Linstead, St. Catherine, Jamaica, and they're offering you loans of up to 100,000 Jamaican dollars. There's no processing fee, same day processing, and guess what? It's only 0 to 4% interest rate. Also to Launch Legacy, where they handle risk and they seek legacy for all your personal insurance needs. In Canada and the USA, visit Launch Legacy at launchlegacy.com or call or text them at 647-989-0782. Launch Legacy is that place that when you stop working for money, they will get your money to start working for you. Today, I feel very honored. This is the last interview that we'll be doing for 2022. And it is my absolute pleasure to have this individual come on the I Am Sure platform to share his knowledge, his wisdom, so we can better understand his own role as it relates to, I call it the revolution of Jamaica's football. And we would say that changes, the wheels are turning and change is coming and change is here. His name is Chris Dehring. All right. He went to let me just give listen, his bio is extensive, so I will not give you all of it, right? Just give you what I consider the important aspects of it, and then when he comes on he could add more. But he went to St. Teresa's prep school. From there he went on to Campion College, where he completed his high school education. He did a short time at UWI before he moved to college in West Virginia Wesleyan College. After finishing college, he worked at Citibank. I think that was the first place he worked. Then he started DB&G. He was a part of the West Indies Cricket Board. Worked for the ICC in the World Cup hosted in the Caribbean from 2007. Started SportsMax, work with Lime, Ready TV, and now he is the chairman of the marketing committee with the Jamaica Football Federation. Just want you to know that he is a gifted sportsman as well. All right. He played cricket for the national team at the youth level, and he also played under 20 football for Jamaica. He was a lethal scorer, I hear, in college, scoring 32 goals in his 4 years in college. You understand me? So that means he's big time. Hear that he was a very mean bowler. You understand me? Played with the likes of Courtney Walsh. So if you can make a team with Courtney Walsh, you must be good. You understand? So all of those accolades, I hear that he can play golf, but one of these days I'll challenge him on that. I think I could challenge him on golf and in soccer. I think I could win those two. Not sure, but we will see. I go to pro golf, right? I don't go on the golf course. I go to pro golf and just hit the ball all the way out there into the pockets and stuff. That's how I play my golf. But he also did the 200 meters for his school as well. So he's well-rounded. So I'm going to have him come on the I Am Sure Sports platform, and he's going to share a whole lot with us. I hope you have your pens and your paper and you're ready to write some stuff down, because I think there's a wealth of information that will be shared with us today. Again, welcome to all of you, BB Cross, all of you people. Yes, he played football in the US. Somebody knows you're from the US. Look at that. Mr. Dehring. Welcome.
How are you doing, man?
Yeah, the people say this man always looking young, I wonder what he and Peter doing where they always look young, like they're not aging. I need to get some of that non-aging medication you're taking, So.
And I always tell people the reason why you have an extensive resume is just because you last long. So it has nothing to do with achievement. Just hang around for a long time and you'll have a big resume.
Big resume. But welcome. So privileged to have you, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you today, right? I hope I did justice to your resume, and if not, you can let me know and then you can share anything else. But I want to personally know, though, which one of the sports you really preferred. I know you probably did cricket because your father used to take you to Sabina Park to watch cricket, but you really probably love football, but you had to appease your father. So tell us about that.
No, football was definitely my first and still is my biggest love. You grow up, I grew up in Mona, so as soon as you hear that book to the park, over Buttercup Park, which was very, very close to my house. You head to the park, ball or roll. So, I grew up playing a lot of football, but you always knew at the time the importance of West Indies cricket as this institution. And I was a ball player. I could, from very early, I realized I could play any ball sport. And so I got into all of them, whether it be tennis or table tennis or is whatever was being played. I loved sports, and sports has my entire life has kind of revolved around it. I feel like it has been such an integral part of my life, especially football. I mean, every major turning point, football had played some role in there. You know what I mean? So football was definitely the sport. I ended up at Campion, which wasn't a football powerhouse, just by virtue of chance, because what had happened in prep school, I was too young to take the common entrance when I finished prep school at
Oh,
St. Teresa's Prep. So there was a mistake in a clerical mistake. There was an error so they put me, instead of going into kindergarten B, they put me in second grade by accident. And they never
oh.
discovered the clerical
Until,
error until
until grade 6.
halfway through the term. And they called my parents in for a meeting because I was keeping up with the schoolwork, but I was falling asleep in class and getting tired. And they also thought I was malnourished because I was very small for a 7-year-old. And my mother said, but he's only 4. But by that point, they couldn't put me back into kindergarten. I'm in second grade and keeping up with the work. So I was the only kid in grade 2 to actually get nap time. They would take me out every day for like a 20-minute nap time.
Interesting story.
But when I finished 6th grade, I was too young, and you had to be 11 to take the common entrance. So Campion had a private entrance. Campion was a private school at the time, and so a godfather of mine, spoke to the priest, and they said, "Listen, if he passed to get into Campion, if he passed the private entrance, we'll allow him to come." So I passed the private entrance, but I ended up taking common entrance in second form at Campion in order to get the government
Oh,
scholarship. So it's quite unique.
whoa, that's interesting.
So I ended up going to Campion because of that, and I mean, I loved Campion, but the truth is, it was a heartbreak because I grew up in Mona, and everybody in Mona went to JC. So that morning when I
But you
had to go
didn't
to
have a
that bus
brother
stop,
who went to St. George's and he played for St.
he
George's?
played for St. George's.
Yes.
But at that point, everybody we knew in Mona went to JC. That was your school, and all our friends went to JC. My brother ended up at George's because my father went to George's, my older brother went to George's. So it was, that would have been probably destiny, but I'd want to go to JC because all of my friends went to JC. And in fact, I used to practice with the JC Manning Cup and Sunlight Cup teams because they're all my friends. And so I think that's how I managed to keep up with the sports side, because Campion wasn't big on sports, so to speak. So I ended up playing for Raymona and Kingston Cricket Club and so on. And so that helped to develop both.
Oh, so you never actually played like Manning and the Costa Cup with Campion?
I played Manning Cup for Campion. I played Manning Cup for Campion.
And that was the first time they actually played in the competition.
Correct. I was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. And so when I finished high school, I still had, I think, 3 years of Manning Cup eligibility because I was just so young, because I'd entered high school young. So I had, I finished high school very young. So I couldn't play Manning Cup anymore because I'd left Campion. And so you knocked around, and then football, football was the outlet. You started getting all these football offers and that type of thing.
I hear that one of the offers that you got was that Dennis Zedi wanted you at JC as well.
Zedi wanted me at JC. Chongfa wanted me at Clarendon College. It was a fun time because you're playing a lot of sports. I was doing okay academically, but I wasn't doing badly, but academics tended to come easy for me. So I did enough to get by, knowing that what I really wanted to do was play sports. So it ended up though that I'm out of high school. I kind of enrolled in UWI, didn't go to any classes up at UWI, but I wanted to play football, and I was playing on the Jamaica under-20 team at that point when I was 17. So I was playing on the Jamaica under-20s when I was 17, but not playing Manning Cup. So I had to find a way to stay in Jamaica to continue to play
Oh,
football, to play on the Jamaica under 20 team, which was touring all over the place, and we're having fun. And that's, had met great friends back then that are still my friends today. Big Ed Sinclair and Blakey and
that's
um,
Tapazuki Sinclair.
Tapazuki. Yeah. We were all playing
Okay,
on
that
the
they were on the
Jamaica
under
under
20
20.
team, and what his name? Errol
Errol
Blake.
Blake. Yeah, Mr. Blake.
Okay. Oh, that was a
Briscoe, Bertie
that was a
Dunn, Nemad.
that was a
Uh,
big under 20 team.
yeah, man, it was a great team. Played some sweet football. And one of the great things that we were able to, the camps that were being held, we always played also with the national team. The national team was around us a lot, so we were, playing, inter squad games sometimes against Den and Lenny Hyde, and it was a fun time that but at some point, my parents started to get really
Concerned.
concerned because I'm just playing this football. And back then, the option of going pro and looking to try and go overseas was very, very almost,
Yeah.
non-existent. So that couldn't really happen. So it ended up taking a football scholarship to West Virginia. We won the national championship. Guys like Martin Woodstock, Roger Gordon Martin were there. Martin Woodstock is the best footballer I've ever seen. Close up. I mean, it was like a perfect football. He never made a bad pass. He never made a miscontrol. You couldn't dribble past him.
Some of us don't know because I don't. That name don't ring a bell for me. And I normally know my Martin Woodstock.
Martin Woodstock. At the time, he was the youngest footballer to play for Jamaica, I believe.
Oh,
He played for Jamaica. Same time he was playing Manning Cup for JC. They won JC back then. Won Manning Cup in '74. But Martin was just a superbly gifted footballer. Just one of those players that Jamaicans wouldn't have loved him because he wasn't a dribbler per se, and it wouldn't excite the crowd. But he was just this perfect footballer. He never seemed to be in a hurry. Never seemed to make a bad pass. Never, you couldn't get past. He was very small in stature, but he reminds me, if there was a player that would you'd say he looked like, it would be Kante, that kind of
Angola
person. He
Conte.
just
Yes.
always seemed to be around in every play, whether it's an attack or defense. Never making a bad pass. Just he was a super player. So the opportunity to play with him on the same field was too much. I took up a football scholarship and went there, and I actually got called up for the national squad for a World Cup qualifier for the senior team. Um, Somewhere around 83. I was playing in college, scoring a lot of goals and so on. And I got called, they named this huge squad. I remember in the papers, and my parents were excited, but you can't leave school. The
Oh,
chances of you leaving college to come back just for a World Cup qualifier I think it was against Canada. And they named this big squad in the papers. But I'm glad I didn't even try because by the time I think 2 weeks later they didn't even have a camp, and they cut the squad from like 40 to 20, and I wasn't in it. And then of course Jamaica I think got disqualified or something like that from the World Cup qualifier. It wasn't even staged at all. So it was really disorganized back then, the Jamaica scenario. And I can tell you some horror stories. I mean, if you think about some of the recent administrative cock-ups, back then, if my parents knew how, I guess, badly organized, and I'm sure it was just a question of not the availability, lack of funding, lack
yeah.
of funds. But some of the story, I mean, I remember we spent nights in a airport in Puerto Rico as a
That's when you
team.
were playing the under 20 team.
Yes, and you're going on tour and you end up in the airport sleeping and so on. I don't, if my parents ever knew, some of the stories,
Whoa.
it
So you're saying that administratively it was
oh, it
probably
was much
worse.
worse, much, much
Oh,
worse,
okay.
much worse. Because it would have been a much smaller organization, much more amateur-led organization. And an under 20 team isn't a priority. You're barely finding funds for your senior team to participate in different competitions. You lift your hat off to the administrators because the resources just would not have been
Yeah.
available. You're talking this is the 70s, late 70s,
Yes.
between 78 and 80. I played Jamaica under 19. under 20 rather than football. And then, of course, I decided last year when we were doing the World Cup qualifiers, the under 20 World Cup qualifiers, I've been getting called to cricket trials the whole time. It's because I was also a cricketer playing for Kingston Club, playing for Campion. And I kept getting called to cricket trials. But I was never able to go to any of them because I was always touring with the under 20 football team.
Yeah.
And the
Let me
last
just
year,
let me just big up a lot of persons like Freddie Butler. Some of the past players normally come on. So Freddie Butler is on.
I
So
see
big.
Altamont Butler,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. God bless you. Bless up to you as
I
well.
think I played. He played. Did he play for Port Royal at one point?
Yes, he used to play for Port
Yes, I
Royal.
remember playing a match against him. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. He wasn't really good still.
No man, he was a good baller, good
I'm
baller. He
just
was young still when I played against him.
Yeah, he was one of those younger players playing in that time. But
Yeah.
Winston Berger is saying that you may not have seen Diego Skill, Marston, and Howard Bell because he's talking about Martin Woodstock
No,
comparing
no.
those two.
Listen. I totally understand when people talk about Diego. I saw Diego. I understand when people talk about Den. I saw and I played against Den. Those guys had skill like you would not believe. But I'm talking about no somebody who would not display any of the skills that Diego Gordon, Skill Cole, I saw all of them. They're fantastic ballers, there's no doubt. But to me, like the perfect footballer, if you understand the game and how a team has to operate, for me, Martin, well, because he just kept the game flowing. He
Yeah,
never dribbled. He never. You just can't remember a bad pass or him losing a ball. Or he was just that kind of footballer. Just made it look so simple without doing anything and just kept the wheels of a team going. So it's a different perspective I'm talking about. Not
yeah,
the skill level. Oh, if you're talking about skill, we probably never had a more skillful player than Blacker Pearl, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Walter Boyd.
yeah,
But would he be your first pick in a team? And would he keep the team going? I don't know.
yeah.
But,
So
but
you're at the so you couldn't make it to the cricket
I could never
because
make it to
always
cricket
at
trials. I
football,
was
right?
being called up to camps. There was used to have these camps at JDF where they would pose the cricket. I could never go. I was getting called from like 14 for the under 19 team with Marlon Tucker and all those guys. But I could never go because I was always touring with the football um, team. And the last year, I had 1 year left of eligibility for cricket. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the cricket trials.
But weren't you in college overseas?
No, and this is no, I'm still under 19.
Oh, you're still
So
under
I
19.
stayed out here to play the Jamaica under
Right,
20
right,
football.
yeah.
But the last year of my eligibility for Jamaica under 20, instead of going to the World Cup qualifiers, under 20 World Cup qualifiers, I decided to stay home and go to the
Uh,
trials
yes.
for cricket. And I'll never forget when they named the last trial match. I hadn't made runs in the first two trial match, and there was one last trial match. And they named the trial teams, and I opened the papers and I saw Courtney Walsh, Patrick Patterson, and a guy called Bowo James, who was quicker than the two of them at the time, all
Oh,
on my team.
oh.
In the,
So you
I'm
said that
saying, I'm saying,
no.
yes, boy, this is my chance because whoever on the other team will be soup compared to them three. And I said, when I reached the game, one of them was driving a car. I think it was Pato, and they were late. They ended up late to the game. So they all ended up because they were late. They couldn't take the field because on my side, they didn't name them in the starting 11. When they came late, they ended up all three of them on the other team. I was
Oh,
like, no man, this can't be. So I said, listen, this is my last chance. I'm just gonna go guns blazing. And Franz Cunningham, I think, was opening on my team, and I think he out first ball. And I was like, well, listen, it's me and Pato and Courtney Walsh. I just started to flash the leather, flash it all over the park and make a 70 something and put my name down on the team. And we ended up going down to Trinidad on that under 19 team. But the truth is, when I went down there, we buck up a little team called Leeward Islands, and there was a little man that started beating Patrick Patterson and Courtney Walsh around the park like it was nothing. And he was batting number 3 for
Leewards.
Leeward, and I was batting number 3 for Jamaica. So you're comparing yourself. You're looking. You're on this ladder to the West Indies,
Yes.
and you're saying, "Boy, I can't do that." From the first ball, pato ball or half volley, it's 4. It's a bumper, it's 4 through mid wicket. I mean, hitting the ball like it's gunshot. And I said, I make a note of the youth name, Richie Richardson. And
Yes, yes.
so that same September, I took up a football scholarship to the States because you realize you're not going to play for the West
You're not
Indies.
going to play for the West Indies. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes. Awesome. I'd say you completed college, had a good career. Like I said, I think you scored 32 goals.
32 goals. I was badly injured in my last season. That
Yeah.
really, I would have probably ended up over 40 goals because I was roughly doing 10 goals, over 10 goals on average a season. You had
What
like a
position
12.
you were playing?
Mostly forward, but sometimes midfield, depending on the formations at the time. You can play a 4-4-2, and so I play the outside midfielder, or one of the two strikers and so on. But mostly one of the two strikers at the time. Guys like Thomas McLean came up and was playing for
Yes,
us.
yes.
We won the
Oh,
national.
Thomas McLean. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We won
Yeah.
the national championship in '84. And of course, we were always highly ranked. We were always ranked in the top 5 in the US every year.
Yeah.
So we played the best teams, and that's I think how I ended up being called up to the Jamaica national squad, which I'm sure back then was done in such a
Haphazard way.
haphazard way. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And as I said, they cut the squad even before you got a chance to kick a ball. That type of thing. And I came back. Then I came back home after college, and I couldn't get a job. I applied to, you come back with a degree, and you think, boy, you've made it, and you must can get a work. But I couldn't even get a job. I applied to over 130 companies in Jamaica, and
Whoa.
didn't even get a job interview.
Whoa.
I didn't even get an interview. I got nothing but rejection letters. But I was playing football for Real Mono, and the coach was a man named Peter Moses.
Oh,
And
yes,
Peter
yes.
noticed I'm coming to training early every day, which means I'm not working. And he asked me, what is going on? And he said, listen, he brought me into Citibank as an intern. He created a post for me as an intern. I wasn't being paid very much. It was like a little stipend and so on.
KS is saying that was some sort of nepotism going on where you couldn't
Yeah,
get
yeah. No. I have no doubt Peter Moses as a football coach, and he saw one of his players don't have a work, and but he thought I had potential, brought me in as an intern, and he created a little position. Because you almost have to have
Yes.
links in the country. I was not even getting a job interview, sending out
With a
applications.
degree from
With
West
a degree
Virginia
from a
Wesleyan.
first degree.
Wow.
Because if you didn't know anybody, well, first of all, you have to understand the first 20 odd years of my life, if you heard my name, the only thing people thought of me was a sportsman, a footballer, or a cricketer.
Oh, okay.
So nobody's bringing you in for an interview for a job because they think, oh, is that footballer or is that cricketer, So it was difficult. And he brought me in as an intern, and I did well. And that's how I ended up at Citibank, and my career was started. So that's why I say football has always been so integral. It got me a college education, because without a football scholarship,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to afford.
Got you your first job.
Got me my first job, got me started, and so on. So, and then the linkages you make from football, some of my closest friends, my best friends are all, just last week I had a reunion with some of my college teammates, kind of thing, and we all
Awesome.
got together and reminisce about the glory years, and these are my closest friends because they know you best. They know you before anybody knew really of you as a footballer on tour. And we have just wonderful, breaking curfew at Virginia Tech and the coach catching us, a kind of thing. It was just fun times. I remember we played against this, with a top-ranked college, and they literally, we had all gone out the night before. We had broken curfew and all gone out. We're college kids, And the coach was really upset now because we got busted. And the team, I can't remember their name, but they were a top-ranked Division 1 team. They scored from kickoff. As they kicked off, they just went through us. And the coach
Like Arsenal today.
Yeah, kind of like that, but even quicker. I mean, we were all asleep because we had gone out the night before. The coach was just absolutely livid and jumping. And I remember Thomas was saying, let's take it easy, coach, man. Take it easy. We'll have this. I would beat them like 6-1. Because we all started laughing after the score, the 1-0, because we're like, okay, we need to wake up, kind of thing. We're just, just great memories,
Yeah, so it was at your time at Citibank. You kind of call it quits in terms of your sport playing days.
No, I was playing Major League for Mona at the time. And I was also playing Senior Cup cricket for Kingston Cricket Club at the time. So I was still playing both sports. But it became harder and harder. Your time, I remember there was a particular match, man, against Lucas down at Kingston, down at Sabina. And I remember I was just being abused by this. In fact, Chris Gale's brother, our brother, was at forward short leg, and I flicked a ball, I think, from Errol Wilson, and it got stuck in his helmet. And so at the time, the helmets were just coming in, So you have to understand, I played against the fastest bowlers in the world.
Without helmet.
In those days, without helmet. All right, and you either hook or you get hit. All right, so you learn to be a hooker, and it got stuck in his helmet at forward short leg, and I started to walk off, and nobody was really sure about the rule yet because helmets had just started.
Right, or whether you were out
or not.
Yes.
And even the umpire wasn't sure. And I walked, and then I stopped halfway, and the two umpires conferred, and then they realized that, hey, the helmet can only protect the fielder. It can't help you to take a catch because the ball actually got stuck in his helmet. And under the helmet was Michael Crew. I don't know if he's listening, but it's Chris Gale's half brother. And he started to abuse me, man. And I just remember thinking, you work hard all week. Come take just abuse, both on the football field and cricket. It wasn't as much fun anymore.
Yeah.
Because of the abuse, because it's still a serious level of cricket and a serious level of football. So people are, take it really seriously.
We were talking about that last night on the platform, just how the Jamaican abuse of people at sporting event. I think it's the worst.
No, it's not the worst.
Really?
Not the worst. If you've been, it seems the worst.
Yes.
When it gets violent, it can be the worst because I guess the difference is that the spectators are so close to you on the field. So I
think what they say sometimes, because in Jamaica, I mean, I played, and people will tell you whatever do to your family, and
no, it's worse than that. I get slapped, I get boxed. Man will box you. You end up off the field, but they're right there, so you end up in a crowd, and man will lick you. Man will box you down. There was a particular match, I won't name the team at stadium in Major League. At that time, I was a youngster, so I was on the bench, and I got boxed in the tunnel, heading out onto the field. Man just come across and just box you. You're not doing nothing today. Man, kick down the stadium door at halftime and tell us no meeting. Next time there's real madmanism in football,
You see a man boxing in the tunnel?
Boxing. So the two teams line up to go out. I'm not even started. I'm on the bench. Man just come on and just box me. I said, I don't want to see. I can't remember what it is. Something to the effect of like, you're gonna get licks today, or I don't want to see you do nothing today. It's very intimidating, and that was the intention, to intimidate,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. The football today is mild compared to that. But what I'll say to you, that's probably the only reason why it might seem more vicious, because the players are so close, especially when you're playing, go down to some of these communities and play in the communities before they had stands and that kind of thing. So they're just lined up. When you played Trenchtown or Arnett, down at Arnett, and they're lining the field.
There used to be ropes around it.
Right, it was also a rope.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the rope was also very close to the field. So you're actually almost in the crowd. At times, if you run off of the field, or you got pushed off of the field, or even fall and trip, and you end up in the crowd, a man will kick you. You're on the ground, the spectators them kicking you. But you got used to that,
Yes.
You got used to it in cricket. I'll never forget fielding one time down at Boystown on the boundary. a man just come up behind me with some little stone. I saw just lick me in my head and my neck back. You know what I mean? It's very distracting, you know, throwing stones, you know, getting hit in your neck back, and you're trying to focus on the cricket, and they're hitting you, you know. But you get used to it. You have to toughen up yourself, you know.
Yeah. So that kind of what led to you kind of say, you know what, this abuse is unnecessary. Let's just.
I wasn't having fun anymore, you
Yeah.
know, and of course you want to. I liked going out and having drinks with my friends on a Friday evening, and you couldn't. You know that you're going to be in the sun out all day on a Friday or a Saturday, or there's a big match. So you start to, I guess, prioritize. You know, I want to have some fun now in life. I'm in my early 30s at the time. The bank had just started, DB&G. So I took a break. I stopped playing cricket. I still playing a bit of football. And then one day I read in the papers. I took a break for about 3 or 4 years on cricket. And one day I read in the papers where Kingston Cricket Club, the mighty Kingston Cricket Club, and you have to appreciate that Kingston Club, it might seem, yeah, it was a very upmarket type thing at one point, but there was a time when Kingston Cricket Club had all the Jamaica national players. A practice at Kingston Cricket Club when I was young. Listen to this, man. When I was playing batting number 3 for the Jamaica under 19 team, I cannot make Kingston Cricket Club's team. You know who's batting at number 6? Jeffrey Dejean. You know who's batting at number 7? Maurice Foster. West Indies players. They're just playing for the West Indies, you know. Right? So how am I going to, as a young Jamaican, get a
Under
game?
19,
But
yeah.
even worse, I don't even get a bat in practice when the big boys come. You feel. If you want to get a bat, you go very early to practice on some little man, throw down some ball to you in the net. But then when the big boys come now, you're in the field. You're not going to get a bat at practice. Right? It's all the national players and so on.
Yeah.
And that's how that so and then if you understand, then you have 30, 40 people practicing, trying to get into this
It's
11.
like practice is like a match.
It's like a match, trying to get into this 11 for a game on a Saturday. And I read in the papers where Kingston actually turned up for a match short. And as I went down to the club to find out what was happening, and you almost saw the decline of West Indies cricket at the club level. The amount of people that were practicing would be like 10 or 11.
Whoa.
People practicing. That's how it had fallen off. So I went back to the club. I started to captain it for a little while. In like the All Ireland and so on. In fact, Duj came back one off a tour and played under my captaincy. So I always tease him about that, you know. That I captained.
So this is so significant because that means the decline of West Indies cricket started a long time ago.
You could see it. You could see.
You could see, yeah.
There was again. You could see the decline of the resources as well that was available for cricket. Because there was a time when you go into a match for Kingston, you just picked which one of the players' car you would go in. All right. When I was captain in the team, I was the only player with a car. So the seniority had all left, and there were now all these little kids who were just out of school. They don't have a job yet. They don't have a car. You know, you saw the entire seniority of cricket had left and wasn't being replaced. And so you could palpably see the decline of West Indies cricket back then. Just hardly anybody was coming to practice. You know, Jimmy Adams and Nehemiah Perry joined a couple of years. For a few years, you saw a slight little rebirth at club level, but then it died. You saw
because Samuels, Robert, and those guys were at Melbourne.
Right, Robert was at Melbourne, so I used to play against Robert. I was a senior person back then, though. At that point, I'm not trying to make any side. I'm just really trying to fill a gap at Kingston Club. It was really difficult to see Kingston Club, what they went through, not get the name. And this was the premier cricket ground. The facilities were the best, probably for practice in the country, and nobody was joining to play cricket. And you could see the decline palpably. You know, it was really sad. I got to play against some of my heroes, you know. When you played against a Kingston Kensington match was just a fantastic match to be a part of. You know, you're playing against Yaga and Basil Williams and, you know, great cricketers. Playing against St. Catherine, you play against Renford Pinnock, Newton Dow, Yeah. Junior Williams for Kensington was a really quick bowler. Um, I tell you, people always ask me who's the fastest bowler I ever faced. And of course, I faced Patrick Patterson and guys like that. But the fastest bowler I ever faced was Aaron Daly from Police. That's the first time I actually felt real fear. This little man, he would just jog up. But I don't know
Yes.
what he was doing. They say he used a lot of elbow grease. But that ball would be just whistling up at you, from a good
Yes.
length. And of course, it's pre-helmet days. So you feel real fear. You feel real fear.
Listen, people asking all kind of questions. Somebody asking about Delroy Morgan and all of that, and how good was Delroy Morgan.
Delroy came on after me. I played against him in Sunlight Cup, in Senior Cup rather. Delhi was also a classic batsman. A
Yeah,
defense like a solid as a rock. One of the hardest players you can imagine. One of the nicest guys ever.
yeah.
You're playing against Delroy Morgan. He's just one of you're almost happy for him when he makes runs against you. One of the nicest, genuinely nicest guys. Um, um, yeah.
Somebody's asking if you played against Chris Gale's half brother. He did. He said he called him
Michael
Dula.
Crew,
Yeah, they call him Dula.
Dula.
Dula. Yeah. He did mention. He did mention.
Michael Crew was who actually made up my mind to stop playing cricket
Yeah,
for
he
a
did say.
while.
Yeah, he
We
did
laugh
say.
about it now when I see him.
Yes,
He
yes.
was abusive, man. What happened is I also went on to make runs. I was on North when the incident happened, and he went on to just I can't remember. I think I made 60 or something like that. But he went on to abuse all 60 runs, all 2 hours or 3 hours I spent at the crease was abuse.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
over, he just walked past me and just abusing me. I just say, I'm not having fun, So,
So,
but
yeah.
after then, the major league, obviously started to get on in age, um, and it was just hard to keep up with the blows, man. The speed of the players, they started to run rings around you just with pace. And I
Yeah.
was I was known as a very quick player. So once you lose that
Yes.
sort of first step, and the truth is, back then too, when we'll get on to talk
Everything was
about Pele.
free.
Listen, the licks that man could give you, that it wasn't even a foul. Because you could actually go through the player, and as long as you play the ball, chances are the referee is going to give
Would
you a
not give.
bag.
Yeah. As long as you touch the ball,
Touch the
it's
ball.
not.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
man, I hated playing centre forward because of that. Because your back is always to the central defenders, and we're some big, strong central defender. When you play against Cavalier and Michael Bernard and oh gosh, what's Roy Welch? My God, man, when them guys hit you,
You stay.
it's silly. But the funny story is I used to keep goal for Real Mona. I first started as a goalkeeper.
Oh,
So I was keeping goal for Real Mona, and I always joke with Ali McNabb. Even though if you buck up Ali McNabb turned me into a forward. So I was keeping goal for Mona in a match. I was really the reserve keeper, but I don't remember what happened. We were down at Boys Town playing a game, and I had to play. And Ali McNabb got away on me one-on-one. And instead of the man tuck it into a corner, the
fire
man fired it. And when I tell you, when it hit me in my solar plexus, I thought I had died. I think they pumped me for about a week before I could breathe. I've
Whoa.
never, when it fold you up, it just bent me up around the ball. And that was the last match I ever kept going. I started playing out. So I always
Yes.
credit Ali McNabb with turning me into a fall because I said, no, man, I'm not take them licks again. But the truth is, back then you took some real licks from centre halves and so on, and it was allowed. Back then, you took some blows, and so even that became just,
Part of the reason, yeah. But you actually, I mean, years later, you'd get back into sport, but more from an administrative
yes. I mean,
perspective.
apart from playing Masters League and golf and that kind of thing, it first started. I was approached by Pat Russo and Teddy Griffiths. One day I got called. I had been doing some stuff. I'd created like things at the Mount with my friends down at Sabina
At
Park,
Sabina Park,
the
right?
Pakistan. Because again, I was always very concerned that
You
cricket
were
was.
the initiator of that whole Mount
Yeah,
idea.
you're
Yeah.
right. So no, Antigua started partying at cricket, and I used to take 1 week of vacation a year to go to test match cricket in Antigua because it was phenomenal. A guy named Chicky
Yes,
used
Chicky,
to
right. Chicky
he
used to be the one who
the
do all the
DJ. He
stuff.
used to
Yeah, yeah,
DJ and play
yeah, yeah.
music in the stands, and he had gravy dancing and that
Gravy
kind of thing.
dancing, right.
But the music all day, I realized this was what the sport needed to keep going. Test cricket had become kind of boring for young people. And when we did interviews with people, we did surveys with youngsters. Why they're not coming to cricket? Why were the first thing a young man said was that the sport was boring, which I understand. If you don't understand the game, you can't really get into the intricacies and really appreciate what's happening in a test match. Because a test
Yeah.
match, if you understand what is going on, it's quite interesting. So, but if you don't know the rule, but the second thing they would say is that there are no girls. And you go, what
Yeah.
is on a young man's mind? And you're going to stay all day for 5 days somewhere and not even a single girl's beer man kind of thing. So we started, all right, how can we get girls to cricket? And that's what I first saw in Antigua, that cricket was as popular with the women as the men. Why? Because they're there for an event. They're there for the music
Okay.
and the lime and the chatting and yeah, the cricket is going on, but the cricket is the backdrop. And so we created the Mound, the Red Stripe Mound at Sabina Park, which became a phenomenon, not just
Yep.
here, but internationally. In fact, Channel 4 sent a whole crew out and had people taking notes on the Mound. So they were going to try and how to recreate this around the world in England,
Right, right.
that type of thing. It was just fantastic. So that was, so Pat Russo and Teddy Griffith, who was the chairman of marketing for the Western Free Board at the time, noticed the stuff I was doing. I created a county cricket championship for the local cricket board as well. And they approached me and said, they wanted to have lunch with me one day. And I was at the bank so I had lunch with them.
So just hold on, sir, dear, because there are so many questions, and sometimes I don't want to pause, right? So people have to help me because it's so much, right? And I'm going to take all your questions, but we don't want to break him, and I know if the question goes. So let me just ask you these quickly,
Sure, yeah,
and
man.
then we get back to that, right? One is from this person saying, he says, how good was George Powell from St. Elizabeth? I don't know if
Very
you,
good against fast bowling.
yeah,
Very good against fast bowling. Wasn't as good against spin, but he
yeah.
hit the ball hard. He hit the ball hard.
Yeah, and then he's asking about Richard. Someone is asking about if you ever played against Richard Staple. I heard that
Oh,
Richard
yeah,
Staple
man.
is,
In fact, they used to compare me to Staple when he came along
yes.
in senior cup. They would compare because he would make. I always got teased because everybody called me Yaga because I imitated Lawrence Rowe.
Okay.
Yaga was my idol. I loved Yaga. And so I imitated Yaga. I even wore my cap turned up. I'd whistle while I batted. And so it was, in fact, so Staple was the next Yaga because he was also very elegant, very technically correct, but he never made runs. So
That's
he
what I
would,
heard.
so he would
That
make
is a Jamaican call hooper.
he would make the most beautiful 30 you can imagine. And you go, my God, this man must be the best batsman in the world. And then he got to 30 and would do some stupidness. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So they used to tease me about my imitation of Yaga. Well, Staple was like the embodiment of Yaga, how he looked and the grace, very
Except for the
stylish,
runs. Except for the runs.
except for the runs.
Yeah. Right.
But he
Yeah.
was a very good,
Yeah.
very good batsman,
Yeah.
superb
All right.
batsman.
All right. So we're gonna get back to the script. So you're at, having a discussion. The Mound was taken. Channel 4 took it across because you were going
Yeah,
further
so
from
so I
zero.
had lunch with Pat and Teddy, where I was meeting them really for the first time, and they said to me that the region is looking to, they were looking to now create a commercial operation for the West Indies Cricket Board. West Indies Cricket Board at the time was one person, it was a secretary. It wasn't an
Oh,
operation.
so when it was
As
called the
such.
West Indies Cricket Board, it was really one person.
Correct. It was one person,
Ah,
Steve Kamash. But Pat was now looking to create an organization who could run that could run West Indies cricket.
okay, interesting.
Because like most amateur sports in the Caribbean, it was volunteers that were, giving part-time type of thing. But cricket, like football, was becoming a professional sport around the globe with big money involved. So they wanted somebody to help set up the commercial operations of the West Indies Cricket Board. And part of that, they said they wanted to put together a bid. The Caribbean governments had said we want to try and put together a bid to host the Cricket World Cup, which would also be part of the commercial operations because it would give the West Indies Cricket Board some money, as well as help to try and lift cricket back in the region. The decline had started. This was 96 when they approached me. And I said, yeah. So I went to the West Indies Cricket Board in 97 on secondment from Dehring, Bunting and Golding. So I took a 3-year secondment to sort of set up the commercial operations of West Indies Cricket Board and put together the bid to host the Cricket World Cup. So that was the start of it. And then when we won the bid, we presented at Lords, I always tell people I don't know who made the first 100 at Lords, but I know who made the first PowerPoint presentation at Lords. Because that time PowerPoint was brand new. Nobody really knew about it yet, quite frankly.
Okay.
And I had gone in the night before to the long room at Lords and strung it up with a couple of speakers, and they were going to see something they'd never seen before in our presentation. And the English Cricket Board, I'll never forget, went first because they were presenting the 1999 plan. They had already won the rights to host, so they were presenting now their plan for the 99 World Cup. And, Terry, I remember his last name now, but he was the marketing person for the English Cricket Board. He handed out these little flyers with this smiling West Indian on the face, and it's called a Carnival of Cricket. And I said, after he had done his presentation, which fell absolutely flat because everybody was like, Carnival in England, come on. After he had done his presentation, I said, gentlemen, and this is the long room
so
at Lords.
It was just West Indies and England really like competing for.
Well, it was, we were bidding. It's a little confusing, but the reality is that the West Indies were never had any rights to host the Cricket World Cup.
Oh, that's interesting.
There was something that took place. I'm a little vague on it myself, and everybody's a little tight-lipped because of the people that had been involved back when those rights had been given up. But I gather West Indies pretty much gave away the rights to ever hosting the Cricket World Cup in order to become the first, to get the rights to become the first president of the ICC when the ICC was being formed. So it was like a trade-off. That's what I understand.
Yeah, okay.
But they were going to allow us to present a plan to try and get enough members to vote. You had to get 70%, or something like that, to vote. And you're talking over 100 members of the ICC to vote in favor for the West Indies to get back those rights to host the World Cup. Because by then, the World Cup had also become big money. So everybody wanted to host. So there was no automatic right to host type of thing. And so I when Terry finished his presentation, I said, gentlemen, accept margarine may taste like butter, but it isn't. Accept no substitutes. There's only one carnival of cricket. And when I hit the button and the video came on, the PowerPoint presentation, and the music and so on, everybody jumped up and started applauding. It was like, whoa, especially the non-England, Australia, because that set of guys, they were, Lord McLaren stood up and said, even before the presentation, it would be laughable if the West Indies were ever to be considered to host the Cricket World Cup. He was the chairman of the ECB, and he was at the time chairman of Vodafone, chairman of Tesco. He was a huge, personality.
These things are so interesting.
I'll never forget, because you're sitting down and you wonder, how can he say that in front of us? I remember him making a comment in front of everybody that we can't allow the television rights to be going to an Indian TV company. At the time, people were bidding for the TV rights and bidding hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember sitting there and thinking, so I don't really care if it's an Indian TV company bids or an Australian or an English, but in their minds, everything was all about England, Australia. And,
because Lord's the home of cricket.
Home of cricket was in England and so on. But they would be so brave to say it publicly and openly in front of us, like, so what? And the Indian guys would be like, so what's wrong with an Indian TV company? And we'd be like, hey, what's wrong with West Indies hosting? Why is that laughable? So we got the votes, and in fact, Dennis Rogers, I'll never forget him, because he was the chairman of the Australian Cricket Board at the time. And after the presentation, standing ovation and so on. He came over to me while I was packing up the projector. And first of all, he had never seen a projector or anything because all these things were brand new, PowerPoint. And he was asking me about it, and I had, showing him it's a PowerPoint, it's, and it integrates the video and all that. And then he says, I came here to vote against the West Indies because I did not think you were capable of hosting the World Cup. But after your presentation, I've changed my mind and I've sent a note back to my board that I'm going to support the West Indies. And I felt really good, because this was a big Australian, Sir Dennis Rogers kind of thing. We had some battles at the ICC, man. There are guys that are just so condescending. And, when we were doing like selling the TV rights and negotiating the TV rights, there was a guy called the head of the CEO of the ICC at the time, Dave Richards, not Dave Richards' son, who became also a CEO, but Dave Richards was an Australian. I remember the different TV companies are now presenting the presentations and the pitches and their valuations for the different years and so on. And I took out my HP12C, which is a financial calculator. No, I'm a finance man, so I started to calculate present values and that type of thing. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, Chris, these things are very complex and complete. It's better we let the experts work these things out. So I just brushed it off and I said, Dave, when I was trading Latin American debt for Citibank, I did more present value calculations in a minute than you will do in a lifetime.
It's very condescending. You can tell that.
Oh God, man, it was.
Yeah, whoa.
But that was where Pat Russell was just amazing. It was amazing to watch Pat in those halls with very powerful men and Pat would just put them in their place because Pat was just such an intellect and worldly and knowledgeable. And when you were in a negotiation with Pat at your side, oh man, he was just phenomenal. You're talking about at the time Pat was probably in his late 60s and he had stamina. And I remember, there was one time we were doing these negotiations. I can't remember what negotiation it was, but we had been going hours and hours and hours. And I wanted to use the bathroom. So I got up and I said, "Excuse me, gentlemen." And he just grabbed me. He just put his hand on my leg and said, "Sit down, young man. We never leave the table until we've got what we've wanted." You hold it, and Pat is holding it. You are not leaving. Let them have to get up because that's a sign of weakness. Which you don't know these things. You know what I mean? That was amazing. He would not leave the table, and he would not let them leave. You want to go to the bathroom? Okay, agree to what I want, and we can all take a break. But he's not getting up from the table.
So we won the bid and we hosted a successful World Cup.
Well, it had its successes, it had its challenges.
Yeah.
You look back and there were some phenomenal things. One of the things that we were most terrified of with hosting the World Cup, everybody thinks of it as a cricket tournament in the Caribbean. They don't understand the liabilities of hosting a global international event. The Cricket World Cup is the third largest global sporting event. It's the only two things that are bigger in terms of television rights and value is the Football World Cup and the Olympic Games.
Okay, no NFL. No,
we're talking global sporting event.
Sport.
Not talking, as an event.
Yeah. So the Football World Cup and the Olympics.
Correct. That's the only two things that have a larger
global
value, which means one thing to you as an event host. It also has the largest liability that goes with it. When things go wrong and the lawsuits start to fly, the liabilities are big because the television rights are big and the sponsorship rights are big and so on. So hosting it has just very, very, it's an onerous task to host it. And so just to give you an example, the Cricket World Cup in England, the value of the claims, the financial claims against the ECB for different rights and so on that they didn't deliver was 9.3 million US. Whoa. The claim in South Africa that hosted the one just before us was 42 million US.
Okay. So where people paid for rights, but they didn't.
Exactly. They're claiming back because those things were not delivered as you, the event holder. Right? So, and of course, as the events go on, the television rights are bigger and bigger. So the
So the claims are
liabilities
going to
become
get,
bigger.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying? The
yeah.
one in England in 99 was 9.2. The one in South Africa in
42.
2002 was 42, kind of thing. Do you know how many claims there were for the Cricket World Cup in the Caribbean in 2007?
Probably around 60 million.
Zero. Zero.
Zero.
We delivered, as far as the commercial
Whoa.
partners were concerned, a perfect event. We delivered everything that that was
Requested.
contractually obligated
Whoa.
to be
That is
delivered.
awesome. Yeah.
No, that's not something you can brag about. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, West Indies didn't win. And as far as most West Indies fans are concerned, West Indies performed poorly and so on. And so these events are really hard to judge. And of course, there was overspending, massive overspending by some of the countries. And of course, Cricket World Cup gets blamed for everything that people want to spend in every country. I'll never I email was the most popular form of communication at the time. Emails became useless because I'd get 3,000 emails a day. Why? Every department in every country, when they're sending an email to somebody, they would copy the CEO. Covering your ass, you know what I mean? That, hey, the
Yes,
CEO
yes,
must be,
yes.
you're getting 3,000 emails a day. You can't, I just turned it off. It became useless. You can't even read, 100 emails before the next phone call is in and you're dealing with some other crisis and so on. So, yeah, it was a eye-opening exercise. Of course, I always tell people I've had a unique perspective because I'm probably the only person in the history of the Caribbean who, over a 10-year period, have had to have regular meetings with all the heads of every discipline in every country. So I would have a meeting with the 10 prime ministers, or the nine or 10 prime ministers, 9 or 10 finance ministers, 9 or 10 attorney generals, hammering out the host
Whoa.
agreement, heads of police, heads of customs, heads of immigration, all of them in a room with you, kind of thing, hammering it out. Heads of tourism, ministers of tourism. When you go
Tourism,
down to the,
yes.
I'm probably the only person that has ever had to do that over a 10-year period. So it was a unique perspective, but and it made me. I love the Caribbean, and I consider myself a Caribbean man. But it made me totally, um, not against, but I just think that things like CARICOM and the thought of a Caribbean unity as a pipe dream will never happen. There was just so many battles nonstop because we're all small islands and we're fighting over the same little piece of the pie and we'll never agree. I always used to tell people, every meeting was the exact same. The Jamaican rep and the Trinidad rep would be at each other, and I'm trying to part that fight because the two of them think they know more than than each other and they know more than everybody else. The Barbadian rep would stand up and say something that sounds probably most reasonable, and everybody just turn on the Bajan because nobody don't like the Barbadian.
Whoa.
And it didn't matter whether it was the prime ministers, the chiefs of police, but at the end of the day, we came together and we got it done. It was a battle, but it made me, not as positive about things like CARICOM anymore. I just said, listen, we're fighting over, I'll give you an example. Tourism, a cricket World Cup or any World Cup, one of the big things is, of course, the plan to bring in overseas visitors.
Yes, visitors, yes.
You could not get the countries to work together. In fact, nobody would share their marketing plan, kind of thing. Why? Because you're in competition. The
Yeah,
visitor, the
that's
visitor
that's
that
it.
goes to Barbados is one that didn't go to Jamaica.
Yeah.
So it was just we
It
were
will be so difficult then to even consider us Caribbean trying to host
a football
football.
World Cup. Oh
Yeah.
my God! Ah, forget that. We wouldn't have the infrastructure in any case. The infrastructure for the Caribbean was stretched for the Cricket World Cup, and we didn't have the biggest matches materialize. People forget that Pakistan was eliminated
Right,
here
because
in
of the whole John
Jamaica,
Woolmer thing.
and India was eliminated.
Yeah.
A World Cup without India is like a football World Cup without Italy, England, Brazil, Argentina, and France combined.
Yeah.
It was a huge blow because
Yeah.
the visitors, that people that had bought tickets, bought book flights, booked cruise ships, when India was eliminated in the first group stage,
Cancelled.
they cancelled. So the game in Barbados that was scheduled to be India versus Pakistan in Barbados was a sold out game, but we knew nobody was coming because it ended up as Bangladesh versus Ireland in Barbados.
Yeah.
So we knew nobody was coming because of the
Yeah.
cancellations that took place of
Whoa.
flights, cruise ships. Of people were just dropping out in droves, you know. So
Yeah.
it was a big blow, and in that sense, you feel the Caribbean was a
But
little
it's such a
unlucky.
tricky thing, and that I think that is sometimes why people believe the kind of monies that are spent and the monies that are supposed to come in. People always believe and have
Masses
the
are fixed.
speculation that things are fixed and set a particular way because they know that so much money would be lost
No,
if
no, but yeah, no. Tournaments are absolutely set. Absolutely. So that game was organized by us to be India versus Pakistan in Barbados in the biggest stadium because we knew that would bring the biggest amount of television
okay,
viewership revenues. It was the sponsors were all flying their people from India because what the big sponsors of the World Cup were a lot of big Indian companies, and they were flying everybody out for this huge game. It's the biggest game of the World Cup. But as far as India and Pakistan is concerned, it's a massive game. It's like Argentina versus Brazil. You know.
yes,
Um, so yeah, so it had its mixed results and so on. But I had also been working. I guess in my preparation for hosting the Cricket World Cup was probably my biggest exposure to sports administration. It was a preparation.
yeah,
Because as part of that preparation, I worked in South Africa for their Cricket World Cup. I lived in South Africa for over a year, working in
okay,
their World Cup.
okay,
Participated again in 2002 Korea Japan World Cup because that was going to be the first time that a global event had been staged across two countries. So it's in working behind the scenes there that you got to see the challenges of multiple countries hosting World Cup
yes,
because
and cities in those countries
the
as
city
well.
is not so bad, you know. It's the
Yeah,
multiple countries because once you have to pass a jurisdiction, a legal jurisdiction, all of a sudden laws change. The laws might be slightly
yes,
different. How do the policing change, the customs change, it and we saw the battle in Korea, Japan. I participated in meetings, where the Koreans would meet on one side of the room, the Japanese on one side of the room, and they would send runners because they're at war. They're not talking to each other.
whoa,
It was crazy. And in a sense, I saw that in the Caribbean with in
yeah,
not as vicious, but you could see the challenges. If you think about in the Caribbean, what we had to do, was pass special legislation, laws,
nation, right, right,
sunset
right,
legislation, and all the countries had to adopt it so that you could have one common platform to administer all the different rights that we were selling as a global sporting event.
yes,
And of course, because there was no, so you're going to all these world games and you're working with them and you're seeing, oh my God, these are things the Caribbean just didn't have. We didn't have a single internationally accredited security firm in the Caribbean
oh, at that time,
for global sporting events. These are special events. You're dealing
whoa,
with it's special
you have to have
and
international accredited
anti-terrorism. Correct,
security forces.
correct. Because
Whoa,
internationally accredited,
I
because of the things like you have to be trained in anti-terrorism to get the event insurance. You have to get all these things. You don't just host a football World Cup. The kind of things, or a cricket World Cup, the kind of things you have to put in place to be able to access funding, to be able to access insurance, event insurance, and so on. These are sort of basic things for big global sporting events, again, because of the huge liabilities that follow these events. So
yeah,
I learned about all of these things, going to these world games, participating in them, working behind the scenes with them, and so on. I'll never forget it was in Korea or Japan. I don't wherever Brazil played Australia. I was doing a tour of the stadium when Brazil was coming off at halftime, and so I'm in the tunnel, and Rivaldo passed this close to me, I don't know why I decided to just reach out and touch his sleeve. Let me tell you, man is like ninjas dropped out to the roof. Like
Yeah.
push me up against the wall. Like, no, you don't touch the players and so on.
Whoa.
I'll never forget that because there were no security around to your, but all of us it was like ninjas dropped out of the ceiling, man.
Whoa, whoa. It is this kind of expertise that also I think because I mean that whole cricket World Cup after that there was SportsMax that
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
very
So
yeah
you started going around the world and started working in international market. I spent a lot of time in England negotiating TV rights and sponsorship rights and so on. So you got to understand, hey, these things are available. Nobody at the time was broadcasting the English Premier League.
yes
That was I was actually, that story is actually fantastic because I was sitting down watching a match at Chelsea. It wasn't an Arsenal match. Arsenal wasn't playing. It was Chelsea, some
just
arbitrary
letting you know
person.
people Mr. Dehring has chosen the right team in London to support Arsenal.
Of course. But I was sitting down watching a Chelsea game as a guest of Sky Sports. And so I'm sitting in the Sky's box and so on. I'm watching the game and so on. I'm chatting to the guy beside me, and we're chatting football, just football. It's the camaraderie that happens when you chat football and you
Yes.
start to talk to somebody who knows the game. And clearly, he realized that I knew the different trades and the transfers and the player values, and we're talking about. And he says to me, he knew I was representing Western Cricket Board and the Cricket World Cup, and I didn't know who he was. And we're talking, and he goes, so football, the EPL is very popular. It was the Barclays Premier League at the time, very popular in the Caribbean. I said, yes, very popular, but we don't get to see it live because at the time it wasn't being broadcast live in the Caribbean. And he goes, oh yes, that's true. We sell those rights to Fox in the US, and it's the North American and Caribbean rights, and we kind of just threw in the Caribbean rights, but Fox wasn't in the Caribbean, so of course
Right.
none of us here got to see it live. And I said to him, the match was still going. I said to him, hey, he turns out he was a commercial director of the Premier League,
Oh.
and I said to him, and I said, would you carve off the Caribbean and let us buy it separately so that we could see if we could get it on TV.
Yeah.
And he says, boy, Chris, Caribbean is too small. It would be too much hassle for us to get into all of that. It's not likely, I said, okay, and I left it. And we just continued, and we had a great day watching the football, chatting football. At halftime, we went in for dinner. And we were eating dinner, and he says to me very coyly, tell me something, Courtney Walsh? Oh, this is 1999. Courtney is still in England playing for Gloucester, and Courtney is one of my very good friends. I mean, we grew up
Right,
playing
because
cricket
Jose
together.
played under
Yeah,
19. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
together. And not just that, it's more bona fide.
yeah.
And I said, yes, why? And he was very coy and very quiet, and he's eating, and he goes, listen, my son idolizes Courtney Walsh. My son is a young fast bowler. He's 14 or 15. Tries to imitate Courtney's action, follows Courtney everything he does, that type of thing. If you can get me an autographed picture of Courtney Walsh for his birthday, which is
Yes.
coming up, I will see what I can do
Yeah.
about the carving off the
The TV
EPL
rights and
rights.
Caribbean separate.
No, all I'm thinking, is I'm going to try and get these rights, go to TVJ and CVM and TV6 and get them to show it.
Yes.
Because I just want to see Arsenal play. That was my main objective. So I called Courtney and I explained to him what was the deal, what was going on. Well, Courtney took him and the son out to lunch. Courtney took the youngster up by Gloucester and had him working out in
Awesome.
the first. Well, listen, I got a call. I was back now in the Caribbean. I got a call from the guy, and he goes, "Chris, thank you so much. That was fantastic. It's on the listen out for a call from so and so from Octagon CSI. That was the agents that dealt with the
Yes.
English Premier League, right?" And the guy called me. He says, "Chris, we don't know anything about the Caribbean. What kind of value you think is there, and how much would you pay for it?" I said, "I don't know. 100,000 US." He says, "Okay, we'll send over the contract." I was like, "Damn, I should have said 10." Because clearly they had zero value for the Caribbean. This was not just add-on. It wasn't
Yeah.
being shown anyway. And then I went to TVJ, not interested. Went to CVM, not interested. Nobody was interested in the English Premier League to buy it.
Whoa.
And
And
so
what I mean, and these guys had no giving it the okay. And it's not like you spoke to the station before and they said, if you can get it, we will do it.
We'll get it. Right. So I had taken the chance. Like I said,
Yes.
of course people are going to want to see the EPL and buy the rights. And it was only 100,000 euros over 3 years. 3 years. So like 30,000 euros a year kind of thing. Well, I think that those rights are no go for like 40 million.
Yeah.
It went for 100 million about 5 years ago. It's now back down to about 40 million for those same rights. So, so I ended up starting SportsMax because nobody was interested in the EPL. So I had to find some way of getting it out there to try and monetize it. And that's how SportsMax was born.
Oh, that's an amazing story. So if one of those stations...
SportsMax would probably not have been born. Remember at the time too, this was 2001.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle, or this was 1999 or 2000 when I was negotiating for those rights. I'm preparing for host of Cricket World Cup. I don't have any time.
Yes.
I don't have any time for this. But it was I'm just gonna get these rights to give to TVJ or CVM. So hey, we can get a seat in the Caribbean. Well, then nobody was interested, so I had to start a TV channel to show it. Otherwise, I'm gonna just lose money.
And then you also worked with Pat Russell with the SportsMax because you guys already had a relationship as well.
Correct. So I went to Pat and said, Pat was out of the board by that point.
Yes.
I said, hey, Pat, would you chair this company? So we started it and we started doing some broadcasts. And then there was a friend of mine in England who was living in England at the time. And I was living and working in South Africa a lot in 2001 because we were preparing for the 2002 World Cup.
World Cup, right.
And Joburg was where the World Cup offices were there. And Joburg is just not pleasant. It was not easy for me. You're talking about racism, man. It was tough, South Africa. And of course, the cricket world is an all-white world at the time still. So It was a very uncomfortable time for me there from a social perspective. After work, you're just home and you're bored. I used to go to London every weekend and I would stay with Oliver McIntosh. Oliver was with Merrill Lynch at the time and he wanted to come home to Jamaica. So eventually, I inveigled him to come home and run SportsMax. And then what he and Pat were able to do with SportsMax, I could only have dreamt, in terms of making it a Caribbean-wide, all over the place.
And for those who don't know, Oliver McIntosh is now C Sports. For those who right. Awesome. No, so all of this now is being you're making available to Jamaica's football, a place where we need a lot of help. I mean, I think we have already lost enough resources financially from 1998. We have not capitalized. We did not capitalize enough on the brand in 1998. All right, and whatever caused that is the past. This is a new era. Things are looking up. New deal coming on, and so talk to us about this new role and what are your plans and visions and.
So the president has asked me to.
Hold on, let me just say this. One of the things I want you to do today is challenge the fan base. Like, what is do we as fans have a role in this vision for the marketing of brand Jamaica from a football perspective? So go ahead and just tell us about the president and all of that. Yeah.
So the president approached me about chairing the marketing committee. My position with all of these types of endeavors has always been, you don't have to make me chairman, you don't have to give me a title, you don't even have to put me on a board. I will always do anything I can if you need my help to help advance Jamaica's football. I know what football has done for me, and I know what football can do for the country. I've been involved with Jamaica Football Federation since '98 campaign. In fact, there was a program I came up with called the Adopt a Player Program.
Yes.
That helped to fund that campaign. Right. And in fact, Mr. Moyes, because I came up with the idea and started it, helped him start it and so on, he allowed me to get first pick. Nobody couldn't understand how DBNG had gotten first pick back then and not any of the big corporations that was funny. It's because I came up with the idea. And so I got first pick, and everybody thought I was going to pick Blacker Boyd or Anandi Lowe, and I picked Theodore Whitmore.
Oh, so Theodore Whitmore was the first person picked in the 1998 Adapter Player
Program.
DBNG.
Correct. Yeah, and it was DBNG, and everybody was wondering, how come DBNG get this advantage to pick first? Well, it's because I come up with the idea. But the reality is, it takes a significant amount of resources, and I use the term resources deliberately, because people think of money. Yes, that money is
resource.
It's only one resource. It's only one.
Yes.
You need quality players. That's another resource. You need administrative capacity. So there are resources that are needed.
Yeah, you need a strong fan base.
Probably the most important, because everything sort of gets the energy from that resource. Sponsors feel positive towards an endeavor or a project if the fan base is positive. Television broadcasters feel more positive if they know there's a solid fan base. So everything, the players will want to come and play for Jamaica and play better for Jamaica because of that fan base. So fan base is like the core of it all, that fuels every other resource that you're going to need. So they've asked me to chair the marketing committee, which is still in its early days. We have, less than a year left of this, I think, administration. And then we'll see what happens after. But I will always try and contribute. I'll always try and get things mobilized. I'll always try and utilize whatever linkages I have in either the private sector here or internationally. One of the great things about having been involved in a global sporting endeavor, it's the same players, no matter which sport you're talking about. It's the same ticket master that deals with football World Cup as it deals with cricket World Cup. Event organizers, it's the same type of people that have been involved. HOK works on every Olympic Games. They worked on all cricket World Cup as event managers and so on. So you get to know the people in the international sporting arena. No, granted, it's 10 or 15 years on, no, 15 years on now from the cricket World Cup. So some of those people have moved on, but some are still around. And in any case, at least there's a recognition and an understanding type of thing, and a language that is spoken that you're still familiar with. So I'm going to try and use that as best as possible to try and help organize. Now, at the end of the day, it is a volunteer position, and the committee is a volunteer committee. So I'm actually putting together a sort of committee that will come up with ideas, come and help deal with some of the more advisory type roles that are needed to support Dennis Chong, who is the new CEO, which is a good move, because Dennis has a lot of exposure from a just administrative and organizational perspective from the private sector, which is important.
Yeah.
But he may not have the sports culture yet. And look, it's not a knock on him.
He has a very good team, because I know he has what's his name from Jamaican National as part of his. He has left that. I think that person is the head of finance now, where Dennis Chung was first before he moved to the general secretary. Forgot his name.
Right.
But
so he has been exposed to the JFF before, so that's good. But I'm talking about the sports culture, where he has been out in the international marketplace, dealing with a lot of, TV rights holders, sponsors, in the football world type of thing, agents and so on. And that's going to take a little time for him to get up the curve, but he's a bright guy, so he will get up the curve. Just like I always tell people, I didn't understand the sports business. I played sports. Sports business is something totally different. And I always tell people, the first time I did a valuation of TV rights, I was lost. And I had valued companies and bonds and stocks all my life. But when it came to valuing sports rights, it was just so complex. It took me a while to understand it and learn how to do it. And it will take Dennis some time.
Yeah.
The good thing is that once you recognize where your shortfall is, you plug your own shortfall. It's those people who don't believe they have a shortfall that go ahead and make all kinds of decisions, not really truly understanding the decisions they're making. Those are the dangerous people. So Dennis, I'm sure, is bright enough to know what he doesn't know.
Yeah. So does this position cover both male and female, senior and junior, or is it just for the senior team?
No,
Or
it is all marketing
yeah.
endeavors of the board.
Right. So there's a lot of work on hand because there's a female World Cup that we have qualified for. There is a World Cup in CONCACAF 2026. That's also something to plan towards. And there's also the new Adidas deal that is supposed to roll out
Correct.
come January. So it's not like there's nothing to do, and it's a
No,
position.
there's a lot of things that
Yes.
need to be done. But at the same time, you just don't want to rush into and start doing a bunch of things. But the administration, the full-time executive that Dennis is in charge of, has to get that done, has to execute.
Yes.
And so we're there as advisory to help, in terms of using all our leverage and contact in the private sector and so on, because it has to be a massive campaign for the reggae girls going to the World Cup. As
Yes.
much
Exactly.
as we say, hey, we have all these things to do, there are two massive priorities that all things flow from. Let's be honest. It's going to be the World Cup women first, and then the World Cup in 2026. Because that is the sort of foundation that will hopefully set the stage for continued, sustainable growth of Jamaican football. It's been a while, even while I was in Qatar, I started to hold some meetings with people who could help along the way. I had a great lunch with Victor Montagliani, who is the president of CONCACAF, but who is
Yes.
also the head of the Football World Cup organizing committee for 2026.
Oh.
Had a great lunch with him, and giving us some sort of perspective from the Canada, what some of the things that they did, because Canadian football has totally turned around. We saw
Yes.
we've seen the results of it.
Because he's actually Canadian, so that's
Correct.
why. Yeah.
He's Canadian, and some of the things that he did as a Canadian president, you have to lift your hat off to him, and hopefully in discussions with JFF, they will take some of these things on board.
Yeah.
We know all about
Because
administrative.
your committee is more, I want people to know, it's not a decision making committee,
No.
it's more an advisory.
More advisory.
Right.
We'll help them. We'll try and get as much as possible into discussions, and if they need my help on negotiation and so on. But I don't attend JFF board meetings or anything of that nature. I provide a report to the JFF board meeting on the activities and so on.
All right. Somebody's asking, has Chris used Mike Fennell as a mentor? Mike has that previous exposure also through the Jamaica Olympic Association. Well, if you have Patros, so
Mike is also my cousin. So you better believe I use Mike Fennell my whole life. Oh, definitely. Mike always used to have so many informal discussions, phone calls I've had with Mike Fennell over the years, especially during the Cricket World Cup, during the lead up for that. I mean,
yeah, he's good. You see, he and Patros are always those two persons when they talk about sports in the Caribbean and its administration. Those two persons always come to mind because they always seem to, no matter how difficult things are, impossible they seem, it always gets done when they are in charge.
Listen, and they've had their cock-ups. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
All administrations have their cock-ups. And one of the things people, and I don't want this to sound or come across as defensive or defending the cock-ups that take place at the West Indies Cricket Board or Jamaica Football Federation. And we've seen many of them. Many of them were avoidable, but some of them, I've lived it, and you almost need a special level of understanding, because we are dealing with an infrastructure in the Caribbean where there's no professional sports, no true professional sports or sports industry that you can draw on expertise and pay them professionally to do the things you need them to do. I'll never forget when I started the merchandising side of West Indies Cricket Board. It was more expensive to send a cap from Antigua, where the board was based, to Jamaica than from England to Jamaica.
Yes.
If you think about that as a merchandise, how do you set up a merchandising company in the Caribbean then? When it is so expensive, the infrastructure in the Caribbean. because we have no professional merchandisers in the Caribbean. You know,
Okay.
everybody thinks Manchester United has this wonderful merchandising operation. They don't operate a merchandising operation. A merchandiser has paid them hundreds of millions of dollars for those rights, and they're
Oh, I see
merchandising.
what you mean.
And they're
Ah, right.
merchandising.
So
With
so it is not like Manchester United per
no,
se. They have sold it over
no, they've
to
sold that right. Cricket
but we
World
don't have
Cup,
that. I see what you mean. So you're saying that in the entire Caribbean,
there are no
there is no
merchandisers that do that. We don't
there.
because we don't have a
Oh,
professional sports industry
makes sense. So that
that
is why
that would have
I see.
created those kind of
I
professional.
see. That is making sense because this is no because this person is asking what is his input. You know, he calls himself Stan Cranky. You obviously would know why he calls himself that. You know which teams he supports.
Maybe
What
it actually is Stan Kroenke. Who knows? We can try and get him to invest a few million.
well he let's say he is the Jamaican born Stan Cranky.
Okay.
So he says, what is his input in sourcing the product that will be marketed? And I think that is exactly what you're just alluding to about unless you have that.
If you don't know how a licensing and merchandising program works, they call it L&M, licensing and merchandising. So for Cricket World Cup, a huge company out of Australia came to us and negotiated, went to go through a tender process for the L&M program for Cricket World Cup. They paid us a huge royalty plus 10% upfront license fee plus royalties. We're going to get 10% of all sales after that. And we
Okay.
just sit back, collect our money. They roll out a licensing and merchandising campaign. They decide, having invested their money, what products are going to be bought and sold.
Okay,
And
because
licensed.
yeah,
They
for
have to
license.
make back the money.
Yeah, yeah,
I already have collected my money. So we don't
yes,
have that kind of operation, really, people in those kind of companies in the Caribbean, because we have no professional sports industry in the Caribbean that has developed it.
yes.
So even Adidas now is going to come in and they're going to obviously have obstacles in their merchandising program that they will have to meet and try and get over those challenges.
Yeah.
Usually, so in Cricket World Cup, they set up a whole L&M department. It had Caribbean
Which is
people in
the
there.
ICC does that, or it is
They
the
don't know the
host,
organizers. So
the
the
organizers?
organizers
Okay.
were the ICC Cricket World Cup 2007, which involves the ICC as well as us as the local organizers.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so you set up a department, and the different people will come to that department. But it's really manned by the people who have the licensing and merchandising rights.
I see.
And so
So
you
you know
go
what
to
is
them.
funny though, because we have been having the discussion. I think when I spoke with Dennis and even with the president and Mr. Speed, one of the things we realized is that the actual name Reggae Boys, and I don't know if this is part of the whole LNM you're talking about licensing and merchandising, right?
It's owned by a company in the States.
Yeah, well, they're not in the States. They're European based, but they
Or
bought the
European.
license in Europe first, and they bought it in the States. So we were always saying that maybe it is that same group that has been doing the negotiation, because if they own the Reggae Boys, or if they have exclusive rights to it, can the JFF now negotiate a deal and use Reggae Boys without the permission of the persons who has the ownership right for it in the States and in Europe?
That would be like you deciding that you're going to manufacture watches and call it Rolex. Rolex would come down hard on you. So whoever owns those trademarks in the different countries, and remember now, trademark is for every country. So you know they will, if they have the trademarks for all the major markets, you have to go through them to be able
Oh,
to utilize that trademark name, and they will charge you money for it. That's why they licensed it. So we were probably slow as a country to, as soon as we got the name, the brand name started to be created, Reggae Boys, we should have registered it. It's not an inexpensive exercise, because you have to go around and trademark a brand in every country in the world to try and protect it. And then you have to police it. You have to have the resources to police it. So hey, if somebody decides to start manufacture Reggae Boys shirts in China, Somebody's going to have to go to China to find a way to stop them. Otherwise, the value of your trademark
will go down. Right.
decimated.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a very expensive proposition, which is why you have these big merchandising operators that go out and license and produce and so on. They don't necessarily manufacture goods at all, but they will allow you, if you want to use this Manchester United logo, okay,
Right.
you can produce those pens with MU logo on it, Manu logo on it. But for every pen, first of all, it's $100,000 license fee per annum, and for every pen, I want 20% of that sale.
Yeah. So the option then, I mean, and this is just because marketing is not just jerseys and stuff. It's way beyond that. But
Marketing is people confuse marketing with advertising.
Yeah.
Marketing is product, the footballers on the pitch, place, how you get that product to the different parts of the world, pricing, and the 4 P's, promotion. This is the last one.
So
That's
promotion,
price,
product, price. I'm missing one.
promotion is advertising that everybody thinks of as marketing, but there's a product.
Right.
You have to have a good product, which is creating a team and players and so on. Creating that team and players, pricing and place. Distribution of it.
Right. There you go. All right. So very interesting. So I was just going to say then, what it would mean is that the marketing arm would have to approach whomever owns this license to either
do a deal,
purchase the license if they will give it up, right, or to, like I said, do a deal where
to utilize it. If it's financially feasible, then it will work. But somebody has to take that commercial risk. Now, when you are trying to raise money just to prepare your team, does a JFF have the wherewithal to also try and go out and invest in a brand, a trademark? Does it have the wherewithal to go out and protect it in all these countries? Does it have the time and resources? So it's unlikely.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Kay says, what is the valuation methodology employed for this industry, and do you obtain an independent party to value the rights so you obtain a fair deal?
Which rights? There's so many different rights. But usually there's always cash flow valuations, net cash flow projections that are used to value. It's similar to us valuing a company or a stock. The biggest challenge with valuing different sports rights is performance, because it just and so many things can impact value of sports rights that are just so unpredictable with sports. Technology impacts sports. I always tell people I sold the first 3G mobile video rights for cricket in the world. And it was sold before the first 3G mobile network had even been built. Because you're selling rights years ahead of an event. And I remember getting a call for I think it's 2004. I can't remember. An England tour was coming here. And I got a call from some agents. What are we doing with our 3G rights? And I said, well, we're working on a strategy. I'll get back to you. And then I had to start calling everybody. What the heck is 3G? Because it hadn't been built yet. Nobody had 3G or 4G or 5. Nobody was talking about those things yet.
Yes.
But you had to now find a way of valuing it to be able to sell it now for an event that's taking place in 4 years. And so you start to do research and so on, and you do your projections as to how many people are going to actually buy 3G rights. At the time, it was really only for highlights and so on. And you've come up with valuations, and you look at what other boards have done and so on. At the time, nobody had done anything about 3G. Yes. Nobody knew what 3G was, and I didn't know what 3G was at the time.
But you sold it.
Yeah, eventually, because you have to search. Sure, and in fact, people wondered, how did I get into telecommunications and broadband and so on? It's because I was so involved in the business of sports. And if you think about it, the two things that have really monetized things like broadband, the internet, and television, it was sports and pornography. And
Yeah. Yes.
so my work in sports, I work so much with technology and telecommunications and negotiating rights that were being monetized by telcos in India and Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia, and so on. You got to understand the technology and you had to understand it in the future. Where was that going? Because you're selling selling rights to events that are happening 4 and 8 years away. So you became almost like a foreseer, a soothsayer, trying to project what's going to happen in India with mobile rights and so on.
Yeah. There are so many questions coming in because I think, but I'm just going to try to see if I can put most of them in one because I don't want us to be all over the place. Because, like I said, I think the concern is that because most persons are sticking to one part of the marketing, and when they think product, they are not thinking the players. The product we're thinking about is jerseys.
And the product is the players.
Right.
The main product is the players and the team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say players. The main product is the team. Players constitute the
team. Right.
What the team.
So people are thinking jerseys, right? So when they think jerseys, I will tell you what's coming to mind and help them to get and understand because you explained it earlier. Like this is saying the JFF has a trademark. Do you know it's a value? Who owns it and how do you plan on capitalizing on it? But you kind of answered that already. Because
the value of it, though, management is pretty much what somebody's willing to pay. I might have a piece of land, and I say, boy, this land worth $10 million, and nobody wants to buy it for $10 million. Well, it's only
because
worth $10
value
million
sometimes
in your head.
is determined by demand.
Correct. And so what we've seen is the JFF, you approach all of these gear manufacturers, and they come to you with proposals and prices, and you pick the one that is financially the best. But you can tell Adidas, hey, my brand is worth 100 million US, and Adidas will say, well, great, take that to Nike or somebody else. I'm not interested.
Exactly.
Adidas is going to pay you what they think they can make back.
Yep.
You can negotiate as hard as you can, but if you think you can get a better deal, then you don't accept the deal. At the end of the day, it's going to be what the buyer is willing to pay.
Yeah, and then success in sport really increases value
over time. Correct. So you can't expect, you're always in a lag period with your negotiation. You will never be able to totally get the top of the market with your first deal. It's how and you're always behind.
Yeah.
So you just keep having to grow it and capture back a big piece of the value that you've created. That's how you do. If you think you're going to get reach the mountaintop from day one, you might as well not even start the journey, because you're not going to get there.
So given your knowledge, so someone outside of however they came by it, we don't know, but they were smart. Let's use that word. They were very smart. Know that Reggae Boys is a big thing. Listen, it is unregistered, so let's register it, right? They did that.
What they did.
Right. So legally they own it. Now, when I hear Reggae Boys, you think about the Jamaican national football team. Is it easier to say Reggae Lions and just create something new and try to, like you said, go and do you have the time, the resources to ensure that is owned everywhere in the world? Or do you go to these people and say, listen, all right?
But who is going to go to them?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm giving the options. That's one.
Yeah, but who? Because that is the first thing.
Yes.
If you're thinking the JFF should get involved in that, I'll tell you, no.
It can't happen because they don't have the resources.
Not just that. Which sports organization in the world does that?
Yeah. No, makes sense. Makes sense. So do you go to the persons who do it and say, listen, all right, we can give you
but that's up to you now as a business person outside of everything. Go to them and try and get that brand back.
Deal. Right. So that's what I'm trying to ask you. What is the best approach given?
It's always going to be a commercial solution at the end of the day. That if it's worth it to, I don't know, Grace Kennedy or somebody to go out and try and get into the sports rights. Grace has through their capital. I remember the GK Capital. They've gotten into rights. They bought champs rights and ISO schoolboy rights and so on. Hey, maybe they're interested in buying getting back the Reggae Boys brand, but they have to see a monetizable way.
Oh, I see what you mean. So even if I had the money, I could go to these people and say, listen, I'm buying back these rights.
Of course.
Okay.
That's who should be doing it. Some private sector. As I said, no sports administration in the world does that. They only do that is when the only ones that do it. Sorry, nobody willingly gets into that. They only do that if nobody is coming to them to buy those rights from them.
I see. Okay.
You know, that's a sad reality, is that the people that need it the most don't have the resources.
Yeah.
So Jamaica, you know, we don't have any, as I said, no merchant L&M companies out here in the Caribbean fighting to buy rights and so on. We just barely started to trade in television rights. I'll tell you one of the things that happened with West Indies cricket. When everybody was flying me around the world, wooing me to try and get West Indies cricket rights. You know, Sky would fly me to, I went to see Riddick Bowe, Holyfield. I went to see the Barcelona. That was it, Manu. Manu played in Barcelona for the Champions League final. Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
You know, because they're marketing it. They're trying to get the West Indies Cricket Board rights. They're trying to build a relationship with us to get the rights, and they're bidding millions of dollars for West Indies Cricket Board rights. The TV stations in the Caribbean were paying us zero. And in fact, before the South Africa tour in 2001, so this must have been about 99 or 2000, the TV stations in the Caribbean came to us and wanted to charge us to put West Indies cricket on TV.
Yeah, that's what we always hear. So well, some of that is changing now, because general people ask, what about the game? What about even with the JPL? It's almost as if there was a time when for the JPL to be played on television,
you have to pay them.
You still
have to pay them. You still have to pay them to get some free to air.
Yes, to get it on free to air, which don't make any sense.
Which it everywhere around the world, it's free to air. People are paying. And the cable are paying their administrators. So I always listen. Sorry to digress, but it's important to understand what happened to West Indies cricket. And I tell people, you can correlate the decline of West Indies cricket with the growth in television marketing sports. Because what happened, the gap, the resource gap between us and England,
significantly,
it became a chasm. It was just massive. So you're talking about, okay, the gap used to be gate receipts. All right, England would make 20 million on a tour. West Indies would make 2 or 3 million on a tour. It's a manageable gap because our talent was managing that gap.
Make up for that. Yeah.
When the gap became 250 million and 300 million US a year, the gap.
Yeah.
You're talking about, let's say, over a 10-year period, one company has billion to pump into their cricket, has pumped in 3 billion into their cricket. Another one has pumped in 0, because that was the gap, you know. West Indies was getting 0 from its domestic sale of TV rights. English Cricket Board get 250 million. India is about $500 million now. Right?
Yeah. And Australia, so the teams have done well. The TV deals have really gone astronomically.
Of course, because of the resources that are being pumped in. When Ireland beat us the other day, I explained to people, you guys don't understand cricket in Ireland and the resources that have been pumped in over the last 20 years. At school, when you go to an Irish school, they have bowling machines and barrels or practice balls. You go to a practice in Sunlight Cup in Jamaica and they might have 2 balls. Certainly no bowling machine.
Yeah.
Much less prepared pitches and so on. When I was in South Africa, when I worked in South Africa, I knew what was going to happen to West Indies cricket. My heart sank. Because when they came out with a list of practice venues for the teams, and they sent around the list, and I was in my office and I saw West Indies practice venue was such and such high school. I flew into Ali Bakker's office in a rage. How dare you disrespect the West Indies? But Brian Lara and Courtney Walsh and Ambrose, and well, we're in with a shot. And how dare you put us as a high school as our official practice venue?
Yes, I heard that story. I heard Who shared that story?
When
Someone
I
shared that
went to
story.
he said, "Listen, Chris, you don't understand. That high school is where Herschel Gibbs and Jack Callis came out of.
Yes.
When we get down to Cape Town, because it was in the Cape Town area, I will have my driver take you up to the school so that you can report back to the West Indians that there's nothing to worry about. It's a fantastic facility." First of all, when we drove into the high school, when we drove to the gates, I couldn't believe this was a high school. They had 5 cricket grounds. Every one of those cricket grounds was better than any test venue in the Caribbean at the time. I mean, we're talking perfect
The
billiard
high
table.
school.
High school.
Wow.
Two of those cricket grounds had lights and stands and pavilions. So when they're playing their inter farm match, it's
Wow.
under lights and sometimes playing. We go to the practice facilities. They had 14 nets, all bowling machines, all lined up, barrels
Wow.
of balls that feed the bowling machines, and they had a practice area with contraptions for fielding that I'd never seen before in my life. It's a high school. Then they took me to the indoor nets part of it where they hook up the little fellows to the electrodes and you see the 3D thing come out on screen and they're working on the tightening the technique of these kids. I'm like, no. Day is dark. West Indies cricket days are dark because they have a professional outlet in the end that are at club level. We don't have, so they're gonna sell these kids. These kids are hooked up with the clubs and who have probably better facilities, and they're gonna sell them eventually. And it's a professional development of an athlete, like how professional golfers are built now, professional tennis players are built now.
Yeah.
So
Somebody just said, Chris Wayne just said, Chris is correct about resources. Why does JC win all these money cups?
resources.
Resources, yeah.
Resources. Why does Casey and Calabar win champs? The resources that have been put in, not money. Do not mistake resources to just mean money. It's they're getting the better athletes. They have old boy networks that are very active that help to provide food and nutrition for athletes. They have more volunteers that are helping because of the school spirit. So there's all of these things are resources.
Yeah. This question on screen says, what are the biggest impediments to success in marketing the JFF football product, in general? Like, what are some of the impediments that we
Well,
need to,
to me,
yeah, why?
it always starts with there are 2 things that impact you. First thing is the quality of the team. You can't get around. You can market and market and market and market, but eventually if the team doesn't perform and win,
Yeah.
even the people who are happy with television exposure and so on, eventually it impacts them. I always tell people that one of the best sponsorships I ever sold when we did Scotiabank Kiddie Cricket Program. And the girl that negotiated the deal with us, a lady named Ruth Bernstein, I'll never forget her because I had to fly up to Toronto to meet her. Knew nothing about cricket, had never heard of Brian Lara or Courtney Walsh and so on. She just wanted the statistics, the numbers, viewerships, and so on. And she signed a deal with us. She got in trouble with her bosses because, like, what in the Caribbean could be worth that much in sports? They then never heard of West Indies cricket as they don't know anything about
Yes.
cricket. They don't know anything. Then Brian Lara and Carl Hooper and the team had the strike at Heathrow Airport. So it was a
Oh,
massive thing. You remember the strike
yes,
when they
yes,
called at
yes, yes.
Heathrow and me and Pat had to go up and negotiate with the players and so on. Well, her boss came into her office up in Toronto with the Toronto Star, and it was front page, an article of this West Indies players strike at Heathrow. And he says, "Boy, I don't know anything about cricket, but if it can make the front page of Toronto Star, let's get more involved,
Yeah.
kind of thing." So I always say,
Look
the
at
team don't have to be performing to get that, but that's just the initial energy, and
yeah.
exposure and so
And
on.
also, and I think also that's a very important point because the team winning changes the dynamics in terms of marketing. But in other words,
It helps.
the players as well, the quality of the players.
Quality, how they act,
There you go.
how
Because
they Correct.
because if you get like a nation like Jamaica, we can't say that about Brazil because they produce like stars after every child is, unto us, a baller is born. That's how Brazil is. You understand me? Jamaica, if we have
I
six or
can't
seven,
explain to you, to people, what Brazil is like. First of all, I'm married to a Brazilian.
yes,
Right?
yes, that.
I
So,
cannot explain to people. I when I met my in-laws for the first time, I speak no Portuguese and they speak no
English.
English. She has two brothers, so I have two brothers-in-law. One supports Corinthians and one supports Santos.
Wow.
They have not spoken in 20 years. They came to the house to meet me. So it's the first time they're getting together. They don't speak because of that war. And we spoke football the entire day. And
Yeah.
one of them made a derogatory comment about Sao Paulo, which is my mother-in-law's team. And she came out of the kitchen with her spoon, cussing, like, don't speak about her team like that. Kind of thing.
Oh,
Like,
whoa.
rage. Oh God, man! Right? When Brazil loses, I cannot speak to my wife for 2 weeks. She's
Yeah.
just so depressed and
We had that conversation yesterday because the other point though is that if we have players who are playing their trade in the top leagues in Europe, say in England, I think that also increases the marketability of the
oh,
product.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Not just local. Because listen, let's face it, the Caribbean is 4 million, 5 million poor people.
yeah.
That is the biggest impediment to marketing a Jamaica team. Jamaica is 2.7 million poor people. Per capita income, 500 US.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. So your marketability is based on the size of the market that you deal with. When somebody is born in India, you're talking about marketability. It's a 1.2 billion
Billion.
population.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? So no matter how well the Jamaican team performs, the people that want to see it the most are Jamaican people. But there's only 2.7 million of us. You can only monetize it so much in Jamaica. You have to go to the international markets, and hopefully you can monetize it with the Jamaicans in the diaspora. Maybe
Exactly.
next step Caribbean people in the diaspora. Maybe next step the Commonwealth people in the Caribbean. And Jamaica, listen, Jamaica has a unique position. I always tell people that we're
Yeah.
a big brand. We're a big brand. We're a brand that
Yeah.
people love. In fact, somebody explained it to me really well that I didn't truly appreciate until he explained it to me. This is a guy who was a prince in Malaysia who happened to be the president of the Cricket Association for Malaysia. So he was on the ICC board because of that. But he was also president of the Olympic Association in Malaysia. And he came out here for some ICC meetings. And we were watching a match at the ground. And he was explaining to my mother, I was talking to my mother, why Jamaica is so loved. He says in the Olympic Games, most countries,
Sorry.
most countries
Sorry. Most countries don't
will
pass.
never win a medal.
Yeah, Chris says, Chris, it is best you support your mother-in-law's team for the peaceful life. But go ahead.
No, she knows I'm a Santos man. I was born, I'm a disciple of Pele, and I will always be.
But
Um,
continue. Yeah.
yeah, so
So most people, yeah,
most countries in the world, when he explained it, I understood it. The track and field element of the Olympic Games is the biggest part of it. That's why the Olympics ends with it. It's the most
yeah,
popular and so on. Most countries in the world will never win an Olympic medal. So
yes,
who do they support? He says they will never support any of the big European countries or America. Most countries in the world. So who do they support? Jamaica. So Malaysians love Jamaica because of that. That's the team that's the people that we support because we're never going to cheer for America or England or Germany or France or any of those. So the
that's
most
true.
of the world, so we think about our brand, why it's so big is because we outperform, and that makes us admired. But
Yeah,
it's how
and then
we
also
perform.
we have. I mean, if I just look in terms of the Caribbean as well, I think we have a bigger market than most of the other Caribbean nations because, like, the Jamaican population in other countries seem to me to be larger than most other Caribbean islands. For example, in England, I always say this, that the amount of Jamaicans in England with kids who could represent Jamaica, which would also increase your marketing there. Same thing in the States. Like, you'd almost think like, you know, at some point Jamaica was under the control of the United States of America because there are so many Jamaicans there. Imagine if we had high quality players who were representing us, and we had that connection in terms of marketing with the diaspora in the United States, the diaspora in England, in Holland, like I said, even in places in Africa, Malaysia.
Well, listen, I just remember the Football World Cup in France. And you go through the crowd, you had this really great Jamaican support in the crowd. And most of the people in the crowd had never even been to Jamaica. They were out of the UK, they were out of Europe. A lot of them were Jamaicans living in those countries that still have that strong connection to Jamaica, even though they've never been to Jamaica. And they certainly don't speak with Jamaican accents, many of them. So yes, it is definitely a resource that we're going to have to find a way to tap into if we're going to make, as I said. But I was saying there are two things that are an impediment. One is the product itself. We have to perform to keep things going. The second big impediment is that somehow we have to develop a television market for our product. And when I say television, I don't necessarily mean just TV. It's the internet. It's a video market. How it's delivered to a screen, it doesn't matter. But you have to be able to grow that market to a size that makes it monetizable, makes it attractive for sponsors. You can't tell a sponsor you're going to deliver 100,000 eyeballs. Okay, you're like any little. You have to deliver millions of eyeballs now. So any influencer on social media in the States, you're talking millions. Look at the eyeballs individual players are able to deliver now. So we have to find a way to tap into that, to deliver those eyeballs, to be able to generate the resources that we need, which is a big part of it is going to be cash, to attract and maintain the type of product that we need on the field. How do we attract the best? When I see the goal that Demarai Gray score
for Everton.
For Everton. Yeah. I mean, this is somebody that should be playing for Jamaica.
Exactly. I agree with you.
But how 100%. Do you attract him to come and play for Jamaica? I'm sure there's a part of him that from an emotional perspective that he wants to.
Yeah.
However, if he's not going to get first-class treatment as a professional footballer, that way he would with England or with his club, it's going to make life difficult for him. It's going to make it difficult. That's going to be an impediment. So we have to find a way to make sure that when we onboard an international player, they're stepping into the first-class lounge. In fact, I'm not going to take credit for that. Victor Montegliani said that was the first element on his plan for Canadian football. He decided if you ever get called up for Canada's national team,
it's going to be the best experience ever.
It is going to be the most incredible experience that ever. You're not going to want to leave it.
Yeah, you just made such an important point. Important point. And here's the point, because I always thought about this. Ethan Pinnock, for example, Brentford centre back, starts every game, plays in the same team with Ivan Toney, who can represent Jamaica. And we needed a striker. And Ethan, I am convinced like you, if he had a first-class experience when he came to Jamaica that first time, and it was, wow, like, oh my God, you know what? He goes back to his club and says, you need to come and get a piece of this.
And I'm not saying it's going to be first world experience, but it's going to be first class. It's like, Jamaican cuisine.
Because I want everybody to hear that again. Yeah, not first world, but first class treatment. Yeah,
correct. And that's a very important point, man, because I'm not saying we're going to fly them around, in first class in the Caribbean, because we don't have that. We don't have the private jets and that kind of thing. But we know we can organize it so that they have a seamless experience. We did it for the Cricket World Cup. In the Cricket World Cup, a player would just simply drop their bag outside, their luggage outside. The next time they saw it was at the hotel, was inside the hotel room at the next hotel in another country.
Yeah.
You understand? So,
Yes.
so we know we can do it, but you have to create the sort of checklists and standards and operational policies and procedures. Michael Hall is just incredible for that. I mean,
Yeah. Michael Hall is an Nixon as well. Yeah.
Tap into to Michael Hall for the JFF would be fantastic. But
And the logistics as well, because the
all
truth
the
is,
logistics,
the
player,
travel. Like
he gets his.
A player must not be worried. How am I going to get from point A to point B?
Listen, when a player joins the national program and he gets an electronic version of the rule book and a really nice printed version of the rule book that he can keep with him of curfew hours and this, and he can flick through, and it makes a different impression versus a piece of paper type up with all kind of misspelling. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just trying to give you an example of the difference things can make. You can give a player 2 pages of some guidelines, or you can give them a really nice glossy or an electronic version of it that are an app that comes on his phone. He's now a part of the Jamaica squad. So here's his password. These are all the things. These are the private messages. He gets his coaching plan. He gets his plan. He gets he can input his nutritional needs. Because listen, the other day I was listening to an interview with Martinelli, and my wife was translating because it was with a Brazilian TV. And Martinelli was explaining what Arsenal did for him when he came up as a youngster.
I remember him saying something like he was so. Who was it? And there's the next player who said, when I went to London Colony, I think London Colony
training.
They were so in awe that.
Listen, Martinelli was given first. He has a private tutor to teach him English. He has a private trainer, personal trainer. He was given a personal trainer to make sure his fitness is up to level. He's given a personal nutritionist to design his meal plans and so on, because they're building a machine, And then he's also given a personal chef. That's the professional world with multi-million dollars.
That's first world.
Right. But we can provide a Jamaican experience, because remember, if these guys still love Jamaica, still in their heart think of themselves as a Jamaican. It's like I said to somebody, when I walk into the stadium to watch football and a man shout out baller, I still turn, I still think of myself as a baller, right? These guys still think of themselves as Jamaicans. They get together with other Jamaicans. They have a particular way of the culture and so on. They keep it alive. So you can tap into that emotion, but they've achieved a certain level. So you have to provide for them a Jamaican experience that makes them feel that, hey, we're appreciated at the level I've achieved.
But you're not really.
I'm sorry, let me cut you. I don't want to make any distinction between them and the local base player that makes it a national squad.
Exactly.
Because when that local base player make it into the national squad, he must feel rotted. I've arrived. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I am getting a first-class experience that I'm not getting at the club level. Kind of thing. And so it's an aspirational thing. I want that kind of treatment.
It challenges him to say, listen, I have to stay on top of my game. I have to improve because I want this again.
Can you imagine when you get caught and all of a sudden you can't get into the app? Because you're out, you didn't perform, or you broke rules and so on, that you shouldn't have broke rules. Your diet was poor. You came into camp 3.5 pounds overweight or something. You know what I mean? That you set these standards that people go, this is a professional outfit.
Listen, I think like everything is coming together, because I listened to Coach Hal Grimison, the new coach, and he said one of the things that he said in his interview, never forget these words. He spoke about the trip that we went to play in we went to play Cameroon for their preparation for the World Cup. And one of the things he said, what is the football reason for the game? All right, because which is tying into what you're saying. Because again, you want to make sure that when you do this, there's an aspect of earning, which is important. So he talked about the footballing reason, and he says everything that we do, there must be a footballing reason for it. In other words, if we're going to go to Cameroon to play, let us play 1, 2, 3 game. Why take, say, a Mikel Antonio from West Ham? He has a long flight, in a lot of pain, to play one game, to go back to his club with his ankle swollen because he never traveled, like I said, in a private jet and all of that. Does the footballing reason justify us playing the game? And that is part of the experience. In other words, when the player turns up for a friendly game, a competitive game, the experience must be so good that, like I said, when Leon Bailey goes back to Aston Villa, he can speak to those other players who have Jamaican connection and say, man, listen, nothing that you experience here at Aston Villa, you're going to miss when you're in Jamaica. I am telling you. They may not have a stadium like this, but they are the consummate professionals. It is high quality, from the food to the travel to the training
to the regimen, the regime, because they will understand what it is like to work in a professional environment where there are strict rules and obligations, as how Mikel Arteta put it, the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Arteta calls it the non-negotiables. These are certain things that are just basic. You turn up for if training is at 2:00, you don't turn up for training at 2:00. You are ready to get started at 2, meaning you're turning up before it fully geared up, ready to start at 2. The non-negotiables. And so if you have that environment, they feel they're coming into a professional environment. You know what I mean? So if they get punished because they break those rules, they understand why.
Are these things, though, because these things are very good stuff. Are there documents? Because are there things that these things are written down that said, listen, part of the whole marketing is the product, and that is we're not first world, but we are first class. And here are the 10 things.
I'm not going to pretend that JFF would have had similar documents. They would have had similar philosophies. Maybe it just needs to be. Sometimes packaging is as important. Form is as important as substance.
Yeah.
But also the execution of them has to be consistent. So so it's one thing to have down that everybody gets the app. JFF app once they become the national team player and they come into the program and they get a password. But it's then to do it.
What? You say even up? Listen, these things are revolutionary,
These things are basic now.
What I'm saying is because these are the things that on these YouTube platform we have been saying. We have been saying that, like, because we have gone and done research and find players. And I'm saying that the truth is there should be a very, when I say it's revolutionary, it's because it is not happening. So there should be a pathway where if my sons are American, when I'm in the States and I say, you know what, I'd love my son to go and represent Jamaica at the under 17, I should be able to click on something and there is a clear pathway of how I move him from here to there, and I know exactly who is going to be shopper, like all of those things.
A friend of mine's child, how I learned what was happening in the England and so on and football. A friend of mine's son, we were at Arsenal a few years back for my birthday. My birthday usually falls on some big match at Arsenal, so I try and go for that game. This year is actually Man U.
Unlike mine, that is always in the summer window, you know what I'm saying?
So mine this year is actually Man U. My birthday falls, so I might be going up for that game. But a few years ago, I had a birthday party at the stadium. A friend of mine's son had just gotten into the Arsenal Academy. And he explained to me what they had to go through. They tried out amongst 300 kids. And that 300 was coming down, was trimmed down from little tryouts that took place.
Yeah.
And Arsenal picks 72 6-year-olds every year. 6-year-olds. At that point, they measure just about everything you could possibly measure about that 6-year-old, and it goes into a database. So they know his vertical leap, they know his standing vertical leap, his left leg vertical leap, his right leg vertical leap. They have all these documents, his statistics on this little 6-year-old, his 10-yard speed over 10 yards, his speed over 20 yards, and so on. And they come up with like I can't remember what it's called, but it's some kind of athletic quotient. So he might have an athletic quotient at 2.6 kind of thing. So by the time he's 7, you want that up at 3.2. It's all very scientifically built. That class of 72, when he reaches 9 and the parents can first sign officially for Arsenal, they cut that class to 30. Right? So you're in this production pipeline all the way from 6 all the way through to the pros.
Yeah.
And they keep those statistics and database. So if you think about what the English FA has as available to it, this massive database, where you now add up all the clubs that are keeping this database. English FA knows how many under 6 players they have in the country that are running the 20-yard dash in 2.8 seconds.
Yeah.
That are able to kick a football 20 out of 30 times in a particular. They have this massive database that they're managing. Now, that's one thing that we should be able to do because we're much smaller. We should be able
right. Yeah.
to
Because
manage and know how many 6-year-olds in Jamaica are registered. When I was talking to Montagliani, he says they know. They have it in Canada now. They know how many. I can't remember the figure he called. How many? They had 1.2 million, something like that. He said around 1.2 million registered footballers now in Canada. They have it broken down into age groups, and in each age group, male, female, they know the vital statistics, the height, and so on. They're building.
Yeah, man, it's not like you could even be. It's not like you could even be in the technical department.
Marketing is all part of product development. Yeah. It's all part of product development. So people think, again, one thing about the Caribbean, people think of marketing totally different from how the rest of the world thinks of marketing. In the Caribbean, marketing is advertising and selling and promote. No, marketing is a view, is an approach to something where you believe in the market of a product, which means how do you develop the product? What is the product? How do you develop it? How do you get it to where you need to get to in terms of distribution? What price you're going to sell this product for? And of course, then you have to promote it to get it, pull it all together.
Yeah. I mean, this is awesome, and I think I mean, don't know how long it's gonna be here, but these things should be like established as documents. I mean, maybe they are there and they need tweaking, packaged differently, all of that because
I'm pulled together. Lots of people. I'm sure the JFF has information on the number of players and registered players. It's just okay. How complete is it? How computerized it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is that they are kids, especially in the States, first generation Jamaicans, right? Who like even past footballers who are there, that we have to find a way, I think, of also, and I think we have the diaspora for Jamaica is a little bit different than all other Caribbean countries. I believe that, and so I think with that, we have to find a way to kind of also be able to tap into some of that. We will not be able to go through all of the states and all of England and find every single one. But those who want to find us should also have a easy pathway to get their information uploaded on whatever system, because that is going to form a part of our product. And then the other thing is a website, like, looking forward to seeing a modernized website where you can get the app on your phone, the JFF app, and you can I can go on the JFF app and find things.
I do believe the JFF has an app.
Yeah.
So
listen, I have to release it because it's New Year's Eve, and I know. But listen, you have to come back because the viewers are going to crucify me because the amount of questions they have that I did not take. I'm going to let I know I have to let you run because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I love to have a next conversation with you to kind of get a little deeper sometime. I know maybe it's way down in the new year, but just to, because I think it's important as well, the fans' responsibility and role in all that you're saying. Because
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't touch on that because Jamaicans are very hard fans, and that has two effects. I think it helps to propel our athletes to the heights that they do, but it can also tear down our athletes to the depths that they can reach. So, so there's a two sides of that machete. You know what I mean? And so it's good because I think we push our it's an attitude we have that is unbelievable. And man, let me just give how I sum up Jamaica's attitude. One experience I had halftime France versus Croatia versus Jamaica in France 1998. It was the most euphoric halftime I've ever felt in my life because we had just equalized. Remember, Croatia scored and Robbie
right, and then
Earl
we
scored
equalize
just
going into
before the
halftime. Yeah.
halftime break. And at the halftime break, we were there in the stadium and the fans were, we were just rejoicing and drinking beer and celebrating like we had won the World Cup. At the end of the match, some of those same Jamaicans that was singing the praises was visibly irate, like angry, cussing the coach, cussing it because we lost the match.
Yeah, we
And
lost 3-1. Yeah.
yes, and want the coach fired, want this and this and I remember looking at some of these Jamaicans that were cussing. I mean, raw anger. You saw it. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, do they not understand the achievement that we had just reaching here and losing 3-1 to the eventual semifinals here? Croatia is a big
Third place
football
team.
team.
They finished
Yes,
third.
yes. But we were angry because in our minds, we're supposed to reach at least semifinals in our minds. We are or win the World Cup at our first try. And I said to myself, boy, that is Jamaica. That is Jamaica's attitude, man. We're that naive enough that it pushes us probably to do things that nobody would think we should probably be doing.
That's a very
So,
good example. We are going to close on that note, but I promise you, people, we are going to have Mr. Dehring back on. Wealth of knowledge and insight he has shared with us. Awesome stuff. He has to run, so I want to thank you again for coming on, because like I said, it's New Year's Eve and you're with family, so the fact that you have taken the time to be on the platform, really appreciate it. And as one of the vloggers out there, I mean, whatever I can do, we can do. I speak on all the vloggers, we can do to help to in this whole push in terms of marketing the product. We are on board. I think the fan base has a whole lot to do with it, like you just suggested. So thank you so much. And
what made the office so impregnable leading up
the
to
fans,
98?
the fans, absolutely right. Yeah, man.
I have
Yeah,
to make it that again. All right, thank you guys, and happy New Year to everybody.
yeah, man. All right then. All right, thank you, Sir Dehring, and we will speak. All right, so people, there you go. We will have Mr. Dehring back on in the new year. I know there's a lots and lots of questions, but I hope you got some stuff. You got some hope. The last day of 2022, Adidas deal. In a couple of hours. Lots of new things. But we're gonna have him on where you can get the next show. We will allow you to call in, ask questions, and interact with him, and that is going to be early in the new year. Listen, please. Enjoy the rest of the evening, the night, right? All the best. Happy New Year when it comes. I know Richard is your time. Richard and Crystal, all the people over there in England and in Europe, Happy New Year to you. It's about your time now. All right. Yeah, man. Thanks to every single one of you. All the persons who made a comment, all the persons who watch, all the persons who subscribed, who shared the video. for the super chats, the super stickers. Really appreciate for all the questions, all the comments. Some of you are interacting in the comments section. Thank you so much. Thank you for a very, very good year. We started well, we ended well, and I appreciate every single one of you. All right, every single one of you. I want to see you all in 2023. Please stay safe. Please, if you're going to drive, don't drink. Please. All right. Yeah, big up to all the other vloggers who are here, from the Formula to Ryan LFC, everyone, all the vloggers, JD, Simon, Coach Minzy, Unseen Sports TV, CC, Dre Anyweather, Rich Paul Sports, Crystal, you don't know Formula, Military Gona, Eddie and T-Got. I mean, bless up. KS Sports TV. Oh my Lord, I hope not this and that TV. I mean, big up to all of you. All right. I mean, yeah. The first man, the man who started the whole player sponsorship in the 1998 campaign, Mr. Chris Dehring. First player who was on that program, Theodore Whitmore, sponsored by Dehring Bunting and Golden. He brought forth the idea. You know how it is. Formula, you know what I'm saying. Ryan, you know what I'm saying. Jason, you know what I'm saying. But people, bless up. Take care. Big up deal. Big up big deal. Big up Chris. You know what I'm saying. It wasn't me. Anyways, people, I am out of here. You know, we have to give a little joke before we go. You check it out. But bless up to one and all. Be safe. God bless. I am management. This has been I Am Sure Sports. And you know, when we get to this point, we say we are over and we are out of here.
Boom, check it out. I don't know it's Jason. I may represent for I Am Sure Sports. For the latest news and updates, check out I Am Sure Sports. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe and share. Jason representing I Am Sure. I am